Sunday that Boston is aiding and abetting criminals with policies that block city coordination with ICE. We'll open the phone and text lines. What do you want to see? What do you Do you have anxieties about what to come? How about what's already happening in our own backyard?
And I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. Then it's CNN's John King, whose all over the map reporting project just took him to Battleground, Arizona. He's going to tell us what everyday business owners had to say about the impacts 6 weeks in from the GOP's massive spending package. It's all ahead on the 11 a.m. hour of BPR on GBH and NEPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Russia says it remains open to a meeting among President Vladimir Putin, Ukraine's leader Volodymyr Zelensky, and possibly President Trump. But the Kremlin has remained vague on the timing of the talks. Trump hopes these will lead to peace in Ukraine. From Moscow, NPR's Charles Maines has more.
In an interview on state television, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow was not refusing any format of meetings, be they between Putin and Zelensky or eventually including President Trump. Yet Lavrov warned preparations for such events take time. His comments suggested Moscow was looking to slow-walk Trump's calls for a Putin-Zelensky meeting in the coming days or weeks. Trump says Putin agreed to the bilateral talks to be followed by a trilateral meeting, including Trump, following a phone call he placed to the Russian leader Monday. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov was more circumspect, saying only Moscow was considering the possibility of holding higher-level direct talks with Ukraine. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
State lawmakers in California have released a proposed map to redraw congressional districts in their state. They say it could help Democrats gain up to 5 seats in the U.S. House. They say they're responding to Texas Republicans. The Texas GOP is advancing a plan to send up to 5 Republicans to the U.S. House. But this change could be harder to do in California. Cap Radio's Laura Fitzgerald says unlike Texas, California voters have to approve of the plan.
Republicans strongly oppose the measure. And just some context here, the reason why California is going to the voters is because the independent redistricting commission that we have here is in our state constitution. So Republicans are criticizing Democrats for sidelining that. California's Republican congressional delegation has also spoken out against the bill.
Laura Fitzgerald reporting. A federal judge handling an immigration case in Florida has transferred a lawsuit to another district. The suit was brought by lawyers who represent detainees at a Florida site that's been called Alligator Alcatraz. NPR's Greg Allen reports from Miami.
The Trump administration filed a court document over the weekend saying that people held at the detention center in the Everglades now will have their cases heard before immigration judges at another South Florida detention center. That answered one of the plaintiff's key demands in the case, and U.S. District Judge Rodolfo Ruiz dismissed that part of the lawsuit. Lawyers for detainees said they were pleased with that decision. Judge Ruiz was considering the plaintiff's request for a preliminary injunction to force the state and federal authorities to ensure detainees' rights to legal counsel are respected. But Ruiz says he agrees with Florida and the Trump administration that the case now should be moved to Florida's Middle District and heard in Fort Myers. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.
The strike against Air Canada is over. The union representing 10,000 flight attendants and the carrier both say they reached a tentative contract agreement overnight. The deal must still be approved by the unionized workers. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu pushing back hard against U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi's demand that the city drop its sanctuary policies. This weekend, Bondi told Wu that Boston has until today to submit a plan to end policies that limit the city's cooperation with federal immigration authorities. In a news conference this morning, Wu said that Boston will do no such thing.
Stop attacking our cities to hide your administration's failures. Unlike the Trump administration, Boston follows the law.
No word yet on how Bondi will respond to Wu's rejection, and you'll hear a lot more about this coming up on Boston Public Radio with Margery and Sue. A state panel is recommending that lawmakers create a sales tax break for personalized firearms as part of the Bay State's continued efforts to reduce gun deaths. The Eagle Tribune reports that the Special Legislative Commission on Emerging Firearm Technology is calling for passage of legislation that would authorize a sales tax break for purchases of firearms equipped with new technology and set penalties for gun owners and firearms dealers who violate those proposed regulations. Sports, Red Sox Orioles back at it again tonight at Fenway. Then the Sox head to New York for a series with the Yankees tomorrow. Qualifying rounds of the U.S. Open Tennis Tournament continue in New York, and in the forecast, another cool and comfortable day with sun, clouds, temperatures in the low to mid-70s, 68 right now in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Walton Family Foundation, working to create access to opportunity for people and communities by tackling tough social and environmental problems. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org.
Welcome to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I am Margery Egan. Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston. Our media maven is filling in for the vacationing Jim Braude. And
2 weeks vacation.
2 weeks vacation, that's right. That's right. Actually, he texted me the other day complaining. He said, Margery, you had 90 degrees on your vacation. I have 60 degrees on my vacation.
Go on vacation in July. How about that?
That's what I told him, but he wouldn't listen. Anyway, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Presley is going to join us at 11:30. Programming notes coming ahead. Michelle Wu, we just saw her in action this morning. She's going to be with us for another edition of Ask the Mayor on the 26th of August from noon to 1. And Josh Kraft, her opponent in the mayoral race, is going to join us August 27th at noontime. So we're going to start the show with you guys at 877-301-8970 as Boston and Deep Blue, Massachusetts are once again thrust into the national spotlight. Mayor Wu this morning delivered her response to Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice's Immigration Enforcement ultimatum in a letter sent to 33 mayors and governors across the country. At the beginning of this press conference this morning, Sue and I noted that a mariachi band was playing. Everybody was cheering. They were singing in Spanish, and that gave us an indication of what Mayor Wu was about to say. So here she is saying that, not just defending Boston's policies, but going on the offensive against the Trump administration.
More than 100 years before your home state was founded, Bostonians were across the street in Faneuil Hall setting the foundation for our democracy and rule of law. This has always been a city of revolution, of innovation, of standing up for the public good, and never bowing down to tyranny. Cities aren't a threat to America. They fuel the American dream. They bring us together. Great cities make our country great. Boston will never back down from being a beacon of freedom and a home for everyone.
Yeah, there was kind of a follow-up, I guess, Sue, of her performance on Ash Wednesday when she was down in Congress asking questions.
How'd you know it was Ash Wednesday?
Because she had a big cross on her forehead. And as people may recall, she was also nursing her little baby girl, which was a first, I think, in the halls of Congress. But that was a repeat, I guess, of her aggressive performance. But what'd you think? What do you think should have been the mayor's response? What she did say or something else? How should Democrats here and beyond Boston, or even just fans of democracy and federalism as a concept, respond to these threats from the White House? Our number's 877-301-8970. What'd you think?
So I just want to point out the richness of this administration, the Trump administration, taking and bullying Boston, right? No taxation without representation.
That's right.
Okay. Michelle Wu and any mayor, not just Michelle Wu, who is doing this, is following the law. ICE, which is a federal law enforcement program, the city of Boston, no city is required to facilitate arrests or help them in any way by law unless they have a warrant, right? That is the separation of powers that our Constitution was built in. That's what the 10th Amendment says. That's what our state law says. That's what's been adjudicated by our Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court.
Correct.
That local police, including the Mass State Police, are not required to assist federal investigations or arrests, and specifically with ICE, unless there is a warrant. So the Trump administration and Pam Bondi are threatening the city of Boston by withholding federal funds because the mayor is following the law. Now, you may disagree with the law. You may disagree with whether or not that Boston police or any police should be assisting federal enforcement. If you disagree, do what I did when I disagreed with the fact that same-sex marriage couldn't get married, same-sex marriage couples. Change the law. Do not threaten Boston by holding up our federal funds, which are tax money. By the way, the blue cities and states, we're supporting everybody else.
We're supporting the entire country.
Okay? So if you don't like the law, change it. That's all I have to say. So if you want to come and bully Boston, and I got news for President Trump. If you think you're going to win by bullying the child of immigrants who has risen to become the mayor of a major city, you are going to lose. That's all. That's the only advice I have for President Trump.
Well, as I said when it happened, when she was down there with the cross on her forehead on Ash Wednesday, I've never seen a person hauled in before a hostile Congress so aggressively push back and so effectively push back as I saw Michelle Wu do it. And by the way, you mentioned the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. Back in 2017, they barred all local law enforcement in a ruling from holding people based solely on civil detainer requests. And this is a civil offense to come across the country illegally. So if they pull you over, they're not going to arrest you, and they're not even going to ask about your immigration status. The Trust Act in Boston directly bars that. And almost 80% of Bostonian voters either strongly approve or just approve of the Boston Trust Act, and what that does, and I'm reading right from the Trust Act here, bars Boston police from working on federal immigration enforcement. They can work with ICE if a crime is involved, if criminal acts are involved, but the Trust Act prohibits cops, as I just said, from asking people about their immigration status. So anyway, 877-301-8970. What do you think about this? The Trump administration is talking about sending more federal troops to different cities.
Sure.
And we know that they're already down in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Louisiana are going to send troops. Governors from Ohio, West Virginia, and South Carolina have also already deployed troops to D.C. It's not clear what exactly they're doing down in...
They're standing around is what they're doing, holding their guns. And, in D.C., now listen, I just want to be very clear about this. If the residents of a city or neighborhood or town or state ask the federal government for assistance, ask the governor to send in the National Guard.
Yep.
If the president who is allowed to federalize the National Guard, if the residents ask that because they want assistance, good. I totally support that. The residents of D.C., the mayor, the police chief did not ask for this assistance. Obviously, it's a different situation because D.C. is a federal district. But at the same time, they are not in the places where the highest crime is in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. does have a crime problem. They're not doing anything to fix the crime problem except keeping people in their houses, which will obviously make the crime numbers drop, but it also means people are not eating out at restaurants.
Right.
People are not choosing not to go to D.C. A number of hotels are reporting cancellations. So President Trump has used D.C. as theater to hurt the economy and make it seem like he's fighting crime when he's not. And here in Boston, he's trying to make an example out of Michelle Wu and some of the other mayors of these cities, these blue cities, who most of them happen also to be minorities or women, and wants to use the federal power to overstep what our United States Constitution says. So just to be clear here, you may disagree with the law, change the law, do not allow the federal government to come into your state.
Okay, apparently we're having some phone issues, but we're working on the phone issue so people can actually call us at 877-301-8970. But we do have some text in the meantime. This is Amber from Worcester. I am so proud to live in Massachusetts. This is exactly what we need to have the courage to fight back between her and Newsom and the Texas Democrats. They're the ones that left the state rather than agree with the gerrymandering, redistricting that it has been called racist in Texas. I'm sensing a palpable shift and, dare I say, some hope. So there's someone who approved what the mayor said. I also like the line when she said, stop attacking our cities to hide your administration's failings. Under the Trump administration, unlike the Trump administration, Boston follows the law, and we will not take back away from our community. So, she was pretty tough. She was pretty strong.
Right.
Ed Markey was there. Jeffrey Brown, who's a longtime minister in the city, he was there speaking. There were different politicians, members of the city council, etc. Okay, let's go to see if we can get a phone call here.
Suzanne, you're going to be our test. We're worried
That's
about
right.
the phone line, so let's hear from you. Speak up loud and clear, and let's see how it goes. Suzanne in the car, welcome to Boston Public Radio. And Suzanne, can you count to 10? No, Suzanne.
Not a good
Suzanne,
sign.
stay on hold. We'll come back to you and see if we can figure it out. We're all, you know what? I'm not going to guess about what might be happening.
Okay.
Here. I'm just going to go off. But you know what? The other thing, Margery, and I really want to parse this out because people have knee-jerk reactions to things. I totally understand if you think that the Boston Police and ICE should be working together. I understand that point of view. The law doesn't allow it, okay?
Well,
and if you want to change it, change the law. And what the president is threatening taking away from Boston for federal funds, that money that he's allowed to hold, he's probably going to ask for more, and it will end up being a court case, which your tax dollars will go into fighting, right? He's allowed to withhold money that has been allocated to us for public safety.
Right.
He's allowed to withhold money that would go to test DNA kits on rape kits, DNA on old rape kits, or murder cases, or cold cases. So the president is threatening, asking the mayor to break the law, to bend the knee to do what his administration
supposedly
wants,
for
public safety,
while
threatening to cut money for public safety.
No, it's an incredible irony there. As you said, the DNA testing, anti-gang, anti-terrorism intelligence, hardening against nuclear threats, among others. So it is a weird thing. We're going to crack down to enforce safety when you would be making us less safe by doing that.
The morale will improve when the beatings stop.
It is fair to say it's always a controversial subject, the police presence in tough crime neighborhood. Because on the one hand, you don't want shootings outside your house. You don't want anybody caught in the crossfire. You don't want these terrible tragedies where you have young people shot on the way to a basketball game or in a park or something like that. On the other hand, nobody wants a police state either.
No.
One of these groups in Washington was taught they were in a bunch of kids, young men in a housing project in D.C. in a tough neighborhood, but they don't want to have 10 National Guard people hopping out of the trucks because they're hanging out at 11 o'clock at night when it's like 95 degrees out.
You want a thoughtful approach. I mean, this I think gets lost in the argument sometimes. Democrats are not for crime. Liberals are not for crime. It's just a thoughtful approach that would work, that both reduces crime, keeps people safe, does not infringe on your civil liberties, and does not violate the Constitution. We have done that in the past. We can balance all those things by improving safety, fighting crime, respecting civil rights, and respecting the Constitution.
877-301-8970. You want to try again, Sue?
Okay, we're going to try Rob. Rob, you're calling us from Ipswich. Fingers crossed. Welcome to BPR. Yay!
Oh, wow.
You did it, Rob.
Okay, thank you for calling. What do you think?
I wanted to say that the billionaires and the big corporations pay no taxes, and we need to switch things around. So our slogan now is no representation without taxation.
I like
Donald says he'll produce his tax returns as soon as the IRS finishes auditing them. He said that in 2015, and after that he'll release his college transcript.
Well, you know, Rob, what works out well is if you are reducing the size of the IRS and keep replacing the director of the IRS while you're being audited, chances are we'll never see the end of that audit. So it all works out for Donald Trump.
Speaking of hiding documents, Mayor Wu was talking about how grocery prices have gone up, and since the Trump administration came in, housing is very hard to find. And she said, the good news on the economy is as hard to find as the Jeffrey Epstein list. So she managed to work in that dig as well, because we've been talking for days now about how a lot of the Trump antics down in Washington have been efforts to deflect from his base's really obsession with the Jeffrey Epstein list. Suzanne, in the car, you are back. Thank you for being patient. What do you think?
That's okay. Thank you for taking my call. I want to
Oh,
Suzanne, hold on again, please. I'm sorry.
You know what? I think it might be, I don't know if it's you or us, Suzanne, but if you can move somewhere in the house or someplace where try to get the reception a little bit better, then maybe we can try again. It might just be, we're just having networking
We're having network issues. So there's breaking news being reported on CNN that the DOJ is going to start providing Epstein records on Friday. So that will be an interesting, we'll see what Trump does later on today to try and change the news cycle out of that. But
well,
it's
important to point out that he could release everything except for the grand jury records. He could do it right now. I mean, the fact that he's not doing it means that he doesn't want to do it, but he could certainly do it right now if he wanted to do it right now.
So as a political commentator, Margery, I would be not earning my pay if I didn't point out that a lot of what Trump has been and Bondi are inflicting upon the city of Boston is in a mayoral campaign year.
Yes.
And elevating Michelle Wu, whether they want to or not, or whether you agree with her or not, elevating her to a national discussion yet again for the second time this year. She had the Ash Wednesday testimony, and now she's standing up to the Trump administration. And for the rest of the field of candidates running for mayor, it does make it a little difficult.
It does.
For them to rise to the occasion. If you're arguing about very important bike lanes, which I don't disagree with, again, very important, but when your mayor is standing up and your opponent is standing up to the President of the United States, if you're running for mayor in this city, you really got to up your game.
Yeah, well, I did read this morning where Josh Kraft is calling Donald Trump a lunatic, so that could be his effort to distance himself from his father's involvement with not only giving money to Donald Trump, but his stepmother being on the board of the Kennedy Center, which Donald Trump is soon to name after himself, apparently.
All right, we have an anonymous texter who says, Wu is channeling Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her inspiring phrase, "Fight back, damn it. This is no time to roll over and give the felon more power." Another anonymous texter says, ladies, quit referring to Trump as president. He's a convicted felon, nothing more. You know, we can have this argument all day. Margery and I had it yesterday, and I think we'll have it for the next 10 years. He's a very successful individual. And any other convicted felon been elected president? No.
I do not believe
so.
I think this is a first.
This
is the first on very many fronts. I mean, you're talking about fighting back. Later in a little while, we're going to be talking about John King, about how Democrats, including Gavin Newsom, who clearly wants to run for president, is trying to mock Trump with his all-cap tweets and or whatever you call it, what you're doing on X. What do you call it?
You're posting on X. Used to be tweeting.
Okay,
now
so
you're
not
posting
you're
X.
posting on
you're not
X.
Xing.
Okay, you're posting.
Just posting on X.
Why isn't it Xing? It was Twitter and we tweeted. Why isn't it X and it's Xing?
Let me call Elon and ask him, Margery.
Okay.
For you.
One of his baby mamas, so-called, is claiming that she has no money and she's being evicted. So he's not taking care of all the children he wants to have to take with him to Mars. Larry from Wellesley, thank you for calling. We'll try again.
Larry? Nope, no Larry. Larry? I hear you breathing, Larry.
Are you there? I guess not.
Yes.
Oh, Larry, yeah, you did it.
Okay. Hi.
What's on your mind, Larry?
I wanted to ask if the governor has the authority to disband the National Guard so it can't be co-opted by the federal government.
So your question is, can the governor, what?
Disband.
Oh, gee, I
the
don't.
National Guard so that it can't be co-opted by the
Yeah,
federal
I don't know if we'd want to do that because we actually need the National Guard, and the National Guard obviously serves a number of purposes here in the state and across the country. So I do know that the governor does have, what is that army that she has? The ancient. She has about 7 old guys with muskets.
Oh yeah,
the honorable ancients, I think they're called.
Honorable ancients.
And they were gathered for the governor of Massachusetts in the Bay State, and they still the honorable ancients, I think they're called. I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
And she can use them anytime she wants for almost anything she wants.
Not a very intimidating force, though. Would you say
well,
the honorable
ancients? It's a musket's a musket.
Okay.
Margery.
By the way, Josh Kraft, give him credit where it's due. He's challenging, of course, Mayor Wu. He called Pam Bondi's demands quote, just another unhinged and bigoted attack targeting our nation's immigrants, close quote. The biggest beef I've heard around here was we've been talking about immigration ever since there was, during the Biden administration, that massive influx of immigrants all over the country, was the complaints about things like closing the rec center in Roxbury. That, I mean, you're in Roxbury. I don't know,
it's right, it's right behind my house.
And so the kids that were in the Boston schools that would go there after school and go and use it were blocked from using that, I think, for a period of several months because we needed some place to house immigrants. The idea that we spent a lot of money on housing immigrants, that annoyed people. But what are you going to do?
Well, why isn't again, this is the argument between the federal government and the state government. Immigration is a federal problem. And so if the state of Massachusetts, the state of Virginia, the state of Arizona has to deal with migrant issues, with people who are here legally going through the asylum process, they are here legally, then the federal government should pick up the money to use our tax dollars through the federal government to deal with the issues. This is this confusion that we keep having about what the states' rights are and what the federal rights are. And again, Trump and Bondi demanding that a municipal mayor break the law in order to meet their agenda is unconstitutional.
And we have a texter, no fan of Michelle Wu, who's saying when they cut the federal funding, she will sink like a stone. And it's worth pointing out, again, this is from the Globe, that sweeping cuts by the Trump administration federal cuts would have difficult legal challenges since a federal appeals court covering Massachusetts rejected similar efforts during the Trump administration, ruling it's unconstitutional for any administration to block government dollars because of local policies on immigration. So the ones that they'd be able to block, as you mentioned before, things having to do with the cops and safety, and I don't think anybody wants things cut having to do with the cops and safety.
All right.
We're hoping to get the phones fixed during this break so we can have a conversation.
Or you could just open your window and yell. That would also be helpful. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to work on the phone lines. Don't text me like you did yesterday saying I'm talking too much and not taking phone calls because it's not our fault. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We're live from the BPL. Come down and see us, and we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Twice a Day Ray. They're a four-piece cover band who by night are equal parts Led Zeppelin, the Pixies, and Taylor Swift. By day, they are emergency room doctors, and as they put it, they are too busy saving lives to write original songs. They joined us ahead of their upcoming show at the Cantab Lounge. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And American Repertory Theater with Passengers, a blend of cirque, music, dance, and superhuman skill. The New York Times writes, extraordinary acrobatics provide gasps of delight. amrep.org. And Mass General Brigham, their leading heart and vascular specialists, are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're broadcasting from the Boston Public Library. Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston is filling in for Jim Browdy, who's on vacation at 60 degrees, but I think it's up to 70 degrees by now. You are listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library. It's
she sounds kind of happy saying that. She's joyful.
/GBH
Jim's
News.
suffering.
No, I'm only
He's
teasing.
suffering.
I hope he's having a wonderful time. He'll have to wear sweaters and a sweatshirt, but other than that. Anyway, we are talking about what is going on in Boston with the Attorney General cracking down on so-called sanctuary cities, which, as you point out consistently, Sue, there really is no such thing.
There's no such thing as
it's
a saying. It's a saying. It's a sanctuary city. It means nothing.
And threatening to take away federal funds if we don't, knuckle under and do what she wants. It was clear that Michelle Wu has no intention of knuckling under. She gave a press conference this morning, and let's play a little bit more sound for this press conference. By the way, we should apologize. We're having phone problems. We're hoping they're going to work in this segment, but they haven't been working very well so far, so we apologize. Our engineers are working on it. But this morning, Mayor Wu called out failures of the Trump administration, including Pam Bondi's handling of the Epstein list. Let's play that one more time.
We are picking up the pieces of your failures to deliver on your promises. Under the Trump administration, groceries are less affordable. Housing is harder to build. Cures for cancer are farther away. And good news on our economy has been as hard to find as the Epstein list.
Boo!
Bada bing.
Shot across the bow.
Mic drop.
On that one. So what do you think? Are you with the mayor or are you not with the mayor? 877-301-8970. Want to try and see?
I just want to say, can I say one more thing, Margery?
Certainly.
One thing about the National Guard, we have to remember, many of the members of the National Guard are also firefighters and police officers. And when we learned when they were sent to California uninvited, they actually had to pull from the California police forces to have the National Guard folks go. So they depleted the local police force, sending the National Guard who had nothing to do. So this is just theater. It is actually not a response to crime. It's pulling from the people who are the first responders, deploying them to other places they're not invited to, and depleting where they work and disrupting their lives.
So you don't think the president is right when he says that Washington, D.C. is totally under perfect control?
No, it's not. They're standing around and they're pulling, people who are delivering iced coffee off their bikes.
Yeah, he has a bee in his bonnet about controlling things in certain neighborhoods, one might say.
Okay, let's go to Ted in Rhode Island. Let's see how this goes. Ted, thanks for calling into Boston Public Radio. What's on your mind?
Hi, Ted.
Good morning, ladies, and thank you for taking my call.
Sure, thanks for calling.
I enjoy listening to you.
Thank you.
It's been my belief for a long time that we need a two-state solution here, like Israel and Palestine and so on and so forth, because we have two nations trying to share the same real estate between the Atlantic and the Pacific, and it's not working. So Rhode Island was the first state to declare independence from...
we're losing you again, but we got... Oops, try again? Yeah, we're losing you, Ted. I apologize. It's our fault.
The point, of course, is that the blue states
should secede.
Our money, our tax money, goes to support the red states.
That's right.
And the blue states are more populated than the red states. Mm-hmm. The red states have 2 senators, even though a couple of the states really should only have 1 senator.
Like Wyoming.
Yep, they also get 1 congressperson, even if they don't have enough to make it. So we support their roads. Most, like Alaska, for example, which has been in the news, they get the most federal funding of any state, and they are a red state. So if the blue states just decided to stop paying our federal taxes and say, well, gee, we have to help out our cities who got the federal taxes, the federal money cut, we could just build a wall that would go, Ohio, we keep in Ohio or not, I don't know, down Ohio, maybe to North Carolina. There is this split here. And again, people have a hard time understanding the concept of federalism, the concept of states' rights, and our Constitution, but this is a violation of the Constitution, what Bondi is asking Wu to do.
You sound like Attorney Browdy. I'm very impressed. I didn't know you went to law school in your spare time.
I actually have him in my ear. He's telling me what to say.
Okay. All right. Did we just already try, Ted, and that didn't work very well? Okay. We now know it's called the Ancient and Honorable Artillery. That's from...
Yes, the Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company of Massachusetts. Yes. They've been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they report directly to the governor of Massachusetts.
And listen to this. They have a great slogan, according to this texter. Invisible in war, invincible in peace.
Right. So they're
I like
ready to
that.
go. They meet at Faneuil Hall, I think, once a month.
Okay, great. So we get Sarah Palin seeing Russia from her house. We now have Sue O'Connell seeing the rec center from her house.
I can't see it from my house.
Yeah, but I mean, you did hear complaining about that. You
I
did,
know, and I
get it.
I get it. I mean, absolutely, a rec
and
center.
even Wu was complaining. She was saying that a lot of the burden of taking in and housing and paying for people who came here across the border fell on Boston.
And let's be clear, that was Joe Biden's problem, right? I want to be totally fair here. President Joe Biden did not help with federal funding for the migrants who were living in Logan Airport, who were living in the rec center, who, by the way, are here legally because they are seeking asylum. They have gone through a vetting process. The government knows who they are, who I met in my neighborhood and were delightful people and had a number of conversations with them. But why was it our responsibility to house them instead of the federal government?
Do you know what would, I think, have made Trump much more popular, because as people know, he's going down in the polls, even on immigration, if he had just declared victory at the border.
At the border.
Credit where credit is due. He shut down the border.
He did.
He shut down the border and then just moved on to the things in the economy that people are so concerned about, instead of this idea of running around to Home Depot parking lots and restaurants where people might be working in the back of the house and hauling out people and separating families. I don't think that's what most people want.
No, and to your point, Margery, if you talk to people Republicans who were voting for him holding mass deportation signs, they kept saying, this isn't really going to happen. He's just going to get the bad guys, right? And of course, that is what happened, and they're surprised.
The bad hombres, some of whom are pregnant and some of whom who just dropped their 4-year-old off at daycare. The kid gets out of daycare at 5 o'clock and there's no one there to come get her.
All right, that's all the time we have for this segment right now. Thanks for all of you who attempted to call and text. We appreciate
sorry,
it.
our
Sorry about that.
apologies.
We apologize.
Hello.
Coming after a quick break, we've got CNN Chief National Correspondent John King. He's got the latest political headlines. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Hello?
In South Africa, brewing beer was once considered women's work. Now there's a brewer trying to revive that tradition.
Women across wanting to re-own that space and starting to celebrate who we are as women and who we are as brewers.
Hear all about the first brewery in South Africa owned by a black woman next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Babson College. You can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's virtual graduate admissions workshop is on August 27th. Registration at babson.edu/gradworkshop. And the Cambridge Homes, a nonprofit independent and assisted living residence proudly serving the Cambridge community and local seniors for more than 130 years. Learn more at thecambridgehomes.org/tradition.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. And by the way, we're so happy to have listeners from NEPM tuning in. That's really great. We appreciate everybody who is tuning in. I'm Margery Egan. Sue O'Connell, who is a news influencer, as well as all her other very prestigious titles.
No money yet. Still working on the money part.
Okay. All right. Is in for Jim Browdy. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who will be, is she going to be here in person? I think she's going to be Zoom. Is she going to be here in person? Okay, so if you want to see the Congresswoman in person, she will be here tomorrow in person. So if we're just tuning in, we were talking about Michelle Wu. Now we're talking to John King, CNN's national correspondent, with the latest political headlines. Hello, John King.
Welcome, John.
Happy Tuesday. How we doing?
We're trying to keep up, basically, John, and so we're going to hit you with some breaking news here. We were going to start speaking about, yesterday's historic meeting of all the many leaders from Europe and the Putin-Trump limo summit, I guess, in Alaska, and now we're seeing some breaking news from your network about, is Trump already backpedaling about security offers to Ukraine that he kind of soft launched yesterday? What's the latest?
Yeah, he's definitive today in an interview with Fox News this morning that he says there will be no U.S. boots on the ground. If there is some security arrangements for Ukraine, which is a lot of ifs involved here, Sue and Margery, but if you got to a point where there was a ceasefire or peace agreement, and Trump has gone further than he ever has before in this meeting with the European leaders about being part of security guarantees, but yesterday he left the door open to U.S. military participation. Well, today he slammed that shut in an interview on Fox News, and that had caused some blowback from his mega base because, Trump during the campaign made clear, number one, during the campaign, he didn't sound all that interested in Ukraine, and he certainly didn't sound interested in taking Ukraine's side during the campaign. But the issue of American boots on the ground is a big issue with his base. And so this is one of the issues with tracking President Trump, is he's not always consistent from day to day. He did leave the impression yesterday that he was at least open to the possibility, which could be some leverage on Putin. If the Americans are actually thinking that they would be part of some big security force, that might help move Putin. But today he says, no way, no American boots.
So I don't understand this because, Putin has to give up something here. That's number one. But number two, they're talking about the security assurances that is so important to Ukraine because obviously they fear for good reason that he'll just keep going and, take over more areas of the country. So this Article 5, we're not going to do, he's not in NATO, so Article 5 is in NATO, but they were talking about something like Article 5, which would offer these military assurances. Doesn't the United States have to be part of that to make anything work in terms of the military assurances?
You certainly think if the United States were part of it, it would give it a lot more weight. It would give it a lot more gravitas. It would give, the world's leading superpower saying we will be part of this. Now, again, it's hard. Trump has moved toward the European position and toward the Ukraine position. So if you are pro-Ukraine and pro-democracy, and anti-rewarding a guy who invaded his neighbor, Trump has moved somewhat in what people would say the positive direction in recent days. However, to your point about this, can it be done? Look what's happening now. The United States is not, but Joe, there's some commitments that were made under the Biden administration that are still happening. U.S. military hardware that American taxpayers paid for going to Ukraine. But when those contracts run out, the president now has said, he will sell U.S. weapons to Western allies, and then they can send them to Ukraine. So it can be done without direct U.S. assistance in the case of the military support. So it could be done without direct U.S. boots on the ground. But that would give it a lot more stature, a lot more power, both physically in terms of U.S. troops and their sophisticated military hardware, but also just morally and philosophically that the United States is the head of the spear, if you will. It would give it a lot more power, but the president says no to that.
John, I'm open-minded. I haven't jumped to any conclusions about what will happen and if Trump is going to be successful getting a ceasefire or brokering peace. I mean, as you know better than I do, anything can happen. We don't know everything that's happening behind the scenes. So I'm hesitant to jump to the end or what I think would happen. But at the same time, seeing all of those European leaders in Washington, D.C. yesterday, and then a moment where it looked like America, President Trump, could be brokering this historic ceasefire and this historic peace, I feel like if I were a European leader and I had gotten all together and flown last minute to D.C., on the way home I'd be thinking, do we really need America? Can we do this ourselves? Am I projecting onto that, or is that a possibility?
Could they do it all themselves? That's an unknown, right? Because since World War II, the end of World War II and the NATO alliance, it has always been done through NATO or through alliances, and almost always with Americans in the lead. There's nothing on this scale, right? We're in uncharted territory here. But if you think about, Bosnia and the Clinton administration, the Americans were involved, the Americans were in the lead. Could the Europeans do it on their own? Yes. I mean, in terms of physically, do they have the military capabilities? They would probably have to buy weapons from the United States. Not all, the French make their own tanks and so on and so forth. The question is, could they pay for it? And would their people tolerate it if it was not part of a big global alliance led by the United States? And number two, to that point, would Putin, see weakness if the United States were not involved in a major, giant way? We're talking about the potential here, but the big threshold question that we don't really have an answer to, and I would add a ton of skepticism here, to the idea, does Putin really want peace? The president is not talking about new sanctions on Russia. There are a lot of people who think the only way you're going to get Putin to a ceasefire is through punishing economic sanctions directly on Russia, but also on India and others that are still buying Russian, fuel, et cetera, essentially paying for things that help Putin pay for his war machine. That until you do that and squeeze Putin, Putin has not said he respects Ukraine's borders. He has not said, oh, that was a mistake to invade my neighbor. He keeps saying the same things. He keeps saying that Ukraine is part of Russia, that these are brothers and these are cousins and we are the same people. And so, number one, as we have these very important conversations, and it's a good thing that the American president is involved. The Europeans flew here mainly as an intervention. They saw what happened in Alaska and they were panicked.
Yeah, if you ever open the door and you see all those people standing there, you know it's an intervention for you if you weren't invited, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Because Trump was using Putin's language in Alaska and after Alaska. And so the fact that they pulled him back, the fact that Trump sat, they were trying to impress Trump. Look around the table, sir. Look at all of us. You can be part of this big thing. And it worked. It worked in the moment. The question is, Trump has been so inconsistent on this issue that who knows what happens next. The Kremlin saying again today that Putin sees no reason to meet one-on-one with Zelensky. He does not view Zelensky as an equal. Zelensky is the democratically elected leader of a place. And I think this is getting lost in some of these, again, maybe incremental progress, or at least maybe incremental progress in bringing Trump around to better understand Ukraine's position, to better understand the European position, to better understand the threat that they see Putin as being to their everyday lives. But you don't hear Trump talking about respect for Ukraine's borders. You don't hear Trump talking about respect for democracy and being against aggression. He still talks about this as a real estate transaction and land swaps and the like. So I would say that there has been some progress, and any progress should be welcomed. But Putin has not changed his tune about how he views Ukraine. And so unless and until that happens, how you could either, or what you're going to call it a peace agreement, Putin wants to keep what he's taken.
Yes.
And I view this as Crimea all over again. 10 years ago, Putin took a big chunk of Ukraine. The West got mad, came in with sanctions. Putin stopped, but he didn't give it back. And so now he wants to keep what he took this time. And history tells you, and again, I hope I'm wrong, but history tells you then Putin will wait 2 or 3 or 4 years. The West will lose its focus and lose its attention, and then he'll take some more.
Well, as long as they keep wearing those USSR T-shirts to negotiations from Russia, I think it's pretty clear what Putin has in mind.
Yeah. So
They're not hiding who they are.
Not at all.
So Sue, you were excited about this morning. So talk to John about what Gavin Newsom is doing.
So I had a breakthrough.
Toughening up the Democrats.
For those who don't know, Gavin Newsom governor of California, has stepped into the bro zone. He's got a podcast. He's been having people on whom normally Democrats don't speak to and don't appear on their shows. And lately, his communications team has been matching Donald Trump's bombastic tweets or posts or Truth Social postings using all caps, saying things in the manner and posting in the way that Donald Trump does. An example is some of the AI images that you see on Trump's social media feeds. Gavin Newsom just posted one of him with, I think, Hulk Hogan in heaven behind him and Kid Rock next to him. And somebody posted, "That's so sacrilegious." And he went, "Oh, right, I meant to post this," and posted Donald Trump as the Pope that Donald Trump had posted on Truth Social. And then I heard somebody on some show last night, might have been on CNN, talking about, actually it was on Fox, talking about how terrible this was. This was a conservative Republican, how inane Gavin Newsom was, how juvenile this was. And suddenly I saw the ad. I saw the ad of all these Republicans mocking what Newsom is doing, but them showing Donald Trump's, like this is a future ad showing Donald Trump's tweets. I now suddenly think it's brilliant. I was concerned earlier. What's your take on what Gavin Newsom is doing in the social media realm?
Well, he's trying to carve out a lane for himself as Democrats think, where do we go next and who do we go next, right? And he's trying to carve out that lane. And he's doing some things, Democrats got really mad at him early on when he was talking to Joe Rogan like people, right? Saying, mm-hmm. Doing that's so, I don't take some testing the waters, right? And so you could say, look, Democrats have a long way back, like a long climb back. Republicans are going to be a mess after Trump, too. Both parties are in this generational, ideological, whatever you want to call it, transitions right now. And when you're the party out of power, it's much more obvious, right? You see the wounds, you see the scars, and you see the competition in the debate. And he's the governor of the largest state. He is making Democrats happy by saying if Texas does redistricting, I'm going to do redistricting, right? You draw 5 new Republican districts, fine. I'm going to draw 5 new Democratic districts. So he's the flavor of the month, if you will, among Democrats. I don't mean that. It sounds disrespectful. I don't mean it that way. We have no idea where this is going, right? However, the fact that he's trying new things and getting out there is interesting. I would say this: if he continues this and it helps him emerge, great. He can raise a lot of money. He's the governor of California. He's not afraid. He's feisty. He goes on Fox News, and he's not afraid of the fight. That's not taking sides. I will say that Donald Trump just won an election against a vice president from California, in part by saying she's a San Francisco liberal and she doesn't get America. Gavin Newsom was the mayor of San Francisco before he was the governor of California. So he would have issues as well if he were to emerge as that person. However, the fact that he seems to know that and he's trying to test things out, I think that's what Democrats need to do. Not saying he's doing the right thing or the wrong thing. That's not my job. But I think any Democrat that wants to say, how do steal some of Trump's sauce? Yeah, Trump is a political phenomenon. Whether you like him or not, look what he did. A hostile takeover of the Republican Party that even the Republicans back in 2016 say, who the hell is this guy? There's no way conservatives are going to go for this guy. Right? Then he wins re-election after January 6th, something people thought was not possible. So to study Donald Trump is actually a very smart thing for any politician to do, even if you completely disagree with everything he says and everything he does. And that's part of what Newsom's trying to do here.
That is one of the big questions. Is this sauce, as you put it, unique to Donald Trump? Because it seems to me when other Republicans try it out, it doesn't work so well for them.
It hasn't so far. I mean, this, again, assume Donald Trump does not try to stay in power. I know a lot of people are saying that's not a safe assumption. Yeah. I get it. I understand it. Sometimes he flirts with this idea. My job is to deal with things when they happen, right? Not to ignore what he says, but to. So he's talked a little bit about Vance. He's talked a little bit about Rubio. You got, Ramaswamy running for office out in Ohio. You got all these other people around the country right now. You are absolutely right, Margery, that nobody has been able to do it like Trump. And we do know, and I know this from my travels, his voters are incredibly loyal to him.
To him.
They're Trump voters. They're Trump voters more than they are Republican voters, or they're Trump Republicans. And if you take the Trump away from that, what will happen? The midterms next year will be another test. We saw that in 2018 in his first term in the midterms, Republicans got shellacked, right? So we have another test next year. And then we'll move into the 2028 cycle. And, assuming Donald Trump stays on the sidelines, and again, I say that with a lot of asterisks and caveats, assuming he stays on the sideline, then we're going to test that theory. But you're right, so far, no one has been able to, find that potion like he does.
So, John King, you have gone all around the country talking to voters about their political views, what they think about what's going on in the country. You were just out in Arizona talking to people, and you're all around the MAP series, talking to them about the economic impacts of Trump's mega bill. We have a clip here of you speaking to Claudio Rodriguez at a food bank in Arizona. Rodriguez apparently urged his congressman to vote against the big, beautiful bill, but he voted yes instead. Here you are talking to him.
So when you say, sir, with all due respect, we think that's going to hurt people, what does he say?
He believes that it won't. That he's attacking the fraud, the abuse, the scam. But I don't know, when we come here every day on the line, we don't really see any of that. And if it is 1 or 2 people that do that, why punish the rest? Why punish the seniors? Why punish the kids? The veterans? We have a lot of veterans that come through here.
So what was your sense of from your reporting on the ground out in Arizona?
You were just talking about this when you were taking calls from your viewers. I think it's important that we talk about Ukraine. It's important that we talk about all these other issues. But we know what happened in the 2024 election. Donald Trump won the election because people thought their costs were going up, their cost of living was going up, and Joe Biden wasn't doing enough about it. Whether you think that's fair or not, that's why the election happened. And so it was fascinating at that food bank. That district, Arizona 6th, is one of the 10 or 12 most competitive battleground districts in the country. I would say it's one of the top 6 or 7 even. 25% of the residents are Latino. Donald Trump had a big spike in his Latino support. That's why he won the battleground states, including Arizona. About 25% of that district is on Medicaid. There are Medicaid changes coming. They kick in after the midterms.
Yes,
Republicans
that was very
smart,
very smart of them.
Politically about this one. But you do see even now demand at that food bank is going up. There are exceptions to this. Egg prices are down. Some other prices are down. Fuel prices like gas is down. But energy costs for your home, rents and interest rates, your rent or your interest rates if you're trying to buy a home, costs are not coming down in the way Donald Trump promised. And the economy is always the biggest issue in any election, barring a war and peace question like that. So as you sit here today, we have a very long way to go. But if Trump's Latino, if Latino support for Republicans drops a little bit, if some of those people who were Trump 2016, Biden 2020, Trump 2024 because of cost of living and inflation, if they're not happy with progress, you can see the seeds now for Republicans facing a backlash in the midterms. A long way to go, but there are plenty of early warning signs that Trump's approval rating is down. You talked about that, I think, a bit earlier in the program. So again, a long way to go. Don't pour cement on anything, but I can give you a list of metrics, including, most importantly, cost of living, that tells you if you're a Republican congressional candidate in a battleground district right now, you're a little worried.
John, the human condition, which is not Democrat or Republican or American, is that we think some things are not going to impact us, right? So if we drive without a seatbelt on, we think we're never going to get in an accident, and then we get in an accident, and we're shocked that we got in an accident, and we should have had our seatbelt on. I mean, it's amazing the human race has been as successful as it is. I'm watching this in the economy. I've shared this, I won't share it again, but, in New England, on vacation, no Canadians, farmers working, picking the food, bringing it to the farmer's market, looking like walking zombies, and behind them a big Trump poster from a house nearby. People who support Trump for a variety of reasons and support Republicans, I think by the end of this year are going to feel pain in a number of areas that they didn't predict it. Is that awareness, is that something that kind of expands their minds to consider other candidates, not just necessarily Democrats, but other candidates who are saying different things as they head into the midterms?
Well, I think a couple points. I think that Trump was new and different. That's why he won, right? Obama was new and different. That's why he won. We live because of globalization, because since the second Obama term, a majority of Americans have thought the country is off on the wrong track. Since the second Obama term, that's a long time ago. That's throughout the Trump presidency, too. That's throughout the Biden presidency. So the country is cranky. And the country doesn't see leadership. It doesn't like Washington. Trump's in charge now, so he pays that price to a degree, right? He can keep his base loyal, but the people in the middle, I know it's a smaller middle, but I think you make the key point, Sue, is that, we think of people, are you a Democrat or you're a Republican or you're moderate or conservative. People vote their lives. And I call what you just described as like, are your legs tired? Right? You get up in the morning and you feel like you are busting your you-know-what, right? And you're doing everything right. And when you look at the bank statement, you got to pull your hair out or cry or be frustrated or try to come up with magic math. You go to the farmer's market, you're carrying those crates. At the end of the day, your leg's tired. And so if your legs are tired, you're looking for something different. You're looking for a little bit of help. That doesn't mean you want a handout. You just want your politicians to be relevant to you. You want them to be talking about you. So I think there's an enormous opening in both parties for new voices and new ways. You mentioned Newsom. Trump did this. Again, if you don't like Trump, he did this, and he convinced a whole lot of people he was on their side. All right. So you might think he's a fraud. You might think he doesn't mean it. You might think his policies don't prove it. But you should study how he did it, because he made a connection with people, right? So I think there is an enormous opportunity, especially if we get deeper into the Trump administration, and people still feel that way.
We'll leave it there, John King. Thank you so much.
John,
Chief
we got to
National
go, but thank you so much for
CNN.
joining us as always, John.
We're saying goodbye to NEPM. Make sure you tune in to the fabulous 413 starting at 3. The show continues here in Boston. Food policy analyst Corby Kummer joins us, and we are going to continue talking about a number of things and hopefully hearing from you. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan. You're listening to BPR on GPH and NEPM, live from the BPL and streaming at...
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Browdy and Margery Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Museum of Printing in Haverhill, preserving the history of graphic communication from typewriters and presses to computers and copiers. Their expanded exhibit of rare and historic Bibles is now on view. More at museumofprinting.org. Anytime you're looking for a snapshot of history, a window into the past, or the perfect partner in crime, GBH has you covered. Find all your favorite GBH shows streaming now on the PBS app.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Margery Egan, ahead on hour number 2 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. On Martha's Vineyard, the sharks might keep you out of the water, but the ticks will make you vegan. We'll talk with Tufts food and policy analyst Corby Kummer about how a tick-induced allergy to meat and dairy is presenting opportunities for the island's vegan food producers and restaurateurs.
I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy. Then new recommendations from the country's leading pediatricians on COVID vaccines for kids stands at odds with the position of HHS Secretary RFK Jr. We're going to talk with Boston Medical Center's Dr. Catherine Gergen-Barnett about what we should expect with cold and flu season just around the corner. All that, plus our venerated Two More Things segment, next on the noon hour of BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Trump administration's now arranging a bilateral meeting between Russia and Ukraine, following meetings with leaders of each country in a span of 72 hours. On Fox News today, President Trump said he wants to end the war, but acknowledged Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin are, quote, the ones who have to call the shots.
I think Putin is tired of it. I think they're all tired of it. But you never know. We're going to find out about President Putin in the next couple of weeks, that I can tell you. And we're going to see where it all goes. It's possible that he doesn't want to make a deal.
Ukraine and European allies want Putin to first commit to halt in fighting, but Trump's calling for a permanent peace deal. Ukraine wants security guarantees against a future Russian invasion should this war end. Trump says there will be some form of it, but echoed Putin's opposition to Ukraine's entry to NATO. A senior Hamas official has confirmed to NPR that it has accepted a ceasefire proposal for Gaza. The move comes as Israel is gearing up for a major military offensive into Gaza. NPR's Jackie Northam has more from Tel Aviv.
Hamas came under heavy pressure from Egypt and Qatar to accept a deal and said there would be rounds of negotiations if and when Israel accepts. The terms of the proposal are similar to one recently put forth by President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff. It included the redeployment of some Israeli troops and more humanitarian aid going into Gaza. Israel had previously agreed to it, but since then the government has been preparing for an offensive into Gaza City. An anonymous person in Israel familiar with the negotiations told NPR the government received Hamas's response from mediators and is studying it and would respond. Jackie Northam, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Home building activity in the United States picked up last month. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the latest figures from the Commerce Department.
Builders broke ground on 5.2% more homes in July than they did the month before. Construction of single-family homes jumped nearly 3% last month. Building permits, which are considered a guide to future construction plans, offered a more mixed picture. Permits for single-family homes rose slightly last month, while permits for multifamily housing fell. A survey shows many home builders are still gloomy about the housing market, with elevated mortgage rates keeping a lot of would-be buyers on the sidelines. Home Depot says its sales picked up in the most recent quarter, but the home improvement chain's sales and profits still fell short of what analysts had expected. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
U.S. stocks are mixed this hour. The Nasdaq is down now 217 points, or more than 1%, at 21,413. The S&P's off 24, and the Dow is up 11. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu pushing back hard against U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi's demand that the city drop its sanctuary policies. This weekend, Bondi told Wu that Boston has until today, Tuesday, to submit a plan to end policies that limit the city's cooperation with federal immigration authorities. In a news conference earlier today, Wu said that Boston will do no such thing.
Stop attacking our cities to hide your administration's failures. Unlike the Trump administration, Boston follows the law.
No word yet on how Bondi will respond to Wu's rejection. Well, the summer political fundraisers continue to stack up on Nantucket Island. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey has one there later today, but not before visiting the Wiggles Way housing development on the island at 2 p.m. Then she'll also tour the farm and greenhouse spaces at Sustainable Nantucket. Her fundraiser begins at 5. Meanwhile, the New York Times reports that Democratic Arizona Senator and a possible 2028 presidential contender, Ruben Gallego, was on Nantucket last night for a fundraiser hosted by a director at the D.C. lobbying firm Cornerstone Government Affairs. In sports, the Red Sox and Orioles are back at it tonight at Fenway Park. Friendly Fenway in the forecast. Another cool, comfortable day on our hands today. Sun, clouds, temperatures in the low to mid-70s. Cloudy and upper 50s overnight. It's 70 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from relationship challenges and goal setting to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public. This is NPR.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan and news influencer Sue O'Connell, also our media maven and also a star on NBC 10 Boston. She's in for Jim Brady, and veteran of all those weeks covering the Karen Reid
I just signed my contract, Margery.
Yeah.
You can bring down the hype a little bit.
I can bring it down? Okay. But you did do a great job covering the Karen Reid trial for us. It's all but he asked for me on vacation. What happened with Karen Reid?
Yes.
Who did it with Karen Reid? People are so
You know what I
fascinated by
say
that.
when they ask me that now? Expect my invoice.
That's very good. That's very good. Anyway, we are live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back here tomorrow and Friday. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is going to join us here tomorrow at 11:30. She'll be here in person, so if you want to talk to the Congresswoman, she's going to join us. Ask Mayor Michelle Wu is August 26th from 12 to 1. Josh Kraft, August 27th at noon. Hello, Corby Kummer, who joins us now at the library desk. He's Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, a Senior Editor at The Atlantic, and a Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Thanks for coming in.
Hello, Margery. Hello, Sue.
Good to see you in person, Corby.
And to be here.
So, human beings are so fascinating. They're never-ending, and how we react to our environment and our food sources is just wonderful. When you go on like a tour, say in the desert in Palm Springs, and the tour guide tells you all the things that humans decided they could eat and couldn't eat. You say, well, how did they know that? Well, they died if they ate that, and they didn't die if they. And eventually, we figured it out. And something like this is happening on Martha's Vineyard with what's a terrible thing, which is a life-threatening allergy coming from tick-borne illnesses. It's called alpha-gal syndrome. And some folks who get it end up being unable to eat dairy or meat because of this terrible, terrible reaction, sometimes fatal, they have to it. And yet, the island, the chefs, the stores are reacting to that. Can you talk a little bit more about what's happening on the vineyard?
Yes, I couldn't resist. I was about to quote your producer, Jamie. Where are you going with this? And where we're all going is to trouser legs tucked into socks and a lot of clothes with insect repellent. Because ticks with Lyme disease are something we've gotten used to in New England, especially used to on Martha's Vineyard, which has acres and acres of waving grass and the most enchanting landscape. Deer are enchanted by that. Deer are tick carriers, and we're used to the risks of Lyme. Not good, it can be chronic, but at least most people know if you have a bullseye rash, you go get it diagnosed and you get treated right away, lest you avoid months and months of antibiotics. But not with alpha-gal syndrome. It's a different kind of tick. It's called the Lone Star tick. It evidently first appeared in 1985, but the rates have skyrocketed. A few years ago, there were 9 positive cases on Martha's Vineyard. Last year of, I think, 1,250 tests, 565 or something to that effect, 523 came back positive. A stunning rise, as Pete Wells from the Times pointed out. So people on the vineyard are saying, let's be vegetarian, because what happens when you have alpha-gal? It's alpha-galactose. It's a sugar that's found in milk and beef. I have a very allergic child in my life, and she is allergic both to milk, which is usual, and beef, which is less usual. And in this case, it usually starts with beef, so very bad symptoms. But as a woman, Pete Wells interviews Nina Levin, who has a dessert cart, says, it's cheese and it's my own buttery pastries and my own soft serve ice cream. That, I think, is the unkindest cut. I mean, alpha-gal is bad, and I've actually known many people who've had it. It's spreading. It's anecdotal.
Why? Why is this happening? The story wasn't really clear about that.
Climate change, of course. What do you think it is?
That's what I thought, because that didn't ring true
in the ticks
story.
that my daughter actually has a rare Lyme disease that took forever to diagnose because it's from the Midwest. We've never been to the Midwest.
Right.
When they say you've had a Lyme disease check, you often haven't, because there's so many different ones you can test. But a lot of it is because ticks are animals, and ticks are responding to the weather change, right, and to the climate change, and they're hanging around longer, they're migrating, and we're their food.
Well, this sounds really, that's the anecdote about the woman who went for a walk in the woods and looks at her phone and thinks that something's moving on the phone, and then she realizes that the cover of her phone is swarming with these ticks, as is her body. It was like, oh my God. I mean, this is, why would you want to go to Martha's Vineyard
We
anymore?
were going to be commemorating the 50th anniversary of Jaws all summer, but that's a new horror movie.
That's a new horrible thing. And also they talk about how this person, extreme cases of anaphylactic shock, which is terrible. I mean, you could die from that. But they talked about how you can get better after a few months. But then this guy stayed away from the beef. He passes out after he inhales smoke from burgers cooking on the grill.
That really caught my attention. I've never heard of that. I've certainly heard of being mysteriously ill, constantly fatigued because you can't have beef. And more I'll be in a restaurant and someone will say, sorry, alpha-gal. It's happening. But in the vineyard, it certainly makes you think twice about going to the vineyard.
No. I would think of all the people that's their big summer location. I mean, all the people, the Obamas, didn't they buy build a $12 million house down there and all that kind of stuff?
They'll be okay.
Yeah, and it's been a great African-American community down there that people have gone there for decades with their families and stuff.
And they want to pursue the outdoors. They don't want to hide from the outdoors, which many people, vineyard residents, are, I think, correctly fearing they must do.
Yeah, it's an awful story. Okay, well, let's move on to something that's a little bit more cheerful. I'm not a fan of RFK Jr., who I think is doing horrible, horrible things for our health. However, I, like a lot of people, like the fact that he's trying to do something, at least, about food, and there's money to be made in the so-called MAHA movement. What do you think?
You're noticing a tight, indeterminate smile on my
Yes.
face as you say this because it's such a mixed picture. And let's tie it to Alpha-Gal. One of the things he wants to do is make the world safe again for beef. So beef and beef tallow, not good for Alpha-Gal. That, of course, has nothing to do with his own calculus. But a lot of what Maha is advocating are very suspicious supplements, because supplements are just get-rich-quick schemes and have very little to do with the whole foods diet. But they do talk about whole foods. They do say you'd better look at the label to find out what's really in it. And they've got people probably unduly worried about some additives. But the idea that you're looking to see how many additives are, you want a so-called simple and clean label, that's all good. Whether they'll ever take any kind of meaningful action against ultra-processed food is a very big open question, because, in fact, there's no definition of ultra-processed foods. And there's lots of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, lots of things like hummus, things that are really perfectly innocent but need certain preservatives to have a long shelf life. There was a leaked Maha report last week. It was due last week, but it's being reviewed by the White House. This was supposed to put teeth into the months ago report saying food is poisoning us, ultra-processed foods and sugar are poisoning us, these very large statements that nutrition people can get behind a lot of. But what was the actual regulatory action they were going to take? Nothing is what it amounts to, because they are afraid of going against industry. But one of the things they said, in addition to vague promises of research, which is ridiculously underfunded at the National Institutes of Health, it's barely 5% of the entire research budget. And when you think of how many people are ill and what it costs the healthcare system, just in diabetes alone, I think $800 billion a year, you realize there's got to be, an enormous new effort to understand more. But one of the things they do call for is research into defining ultra-processed foods, and they've already released a request for proposals for it. So that's good.
But he's not doing anything about pesticides.
No.
That's something that I think is scary to lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
Rightfully.
It is scary to lots of people. It's scary to Maha moms. They're incensed about this. But the pesticide manufacturers got to the Trump administration first. I'm actually on the fence about how much pesticides are bad, and glyphosate, which is Roundup, which is an enormously controversial pesticide.
That's the Roundup spray that people put on.
All of them are way dangerous if they are in high doses, but they also can allow no-till practices, which are actually better for preserving soil. It's a mixed picture.
It's a mixed picture. Okay.
Corby, the thing about RFK Jr., which is just so fascinating to me, is there's a number of things I agree with him on. And I think that if you looked at all of Americans, a lot of people agree with him. We just agree with him on different things. And there's also the institutional wall of big food and big pharma and all the bigs, that if he really wanted to make some changes that we agreed on, like too much sugar or labeling things correctly or all the things that I think doctors and nutritionists agree on, it would almost be impossible for him to accomplish it in a short period. I'm just wondering, when all is said and done, when the RFK is no longer in office, just from the food things that we agree with him on, will there have been progress, at least enlightenment, that people say, oh, I can see why it's so difficult to change this, even if we all directionally agree with it?
This is exactly the right question. And so a bunch of my strategic pals are saying, what can we get bipartisan support for so that good things from the Maha movement can outlive RFK and can outlive this administration? David Kessler, the former FDA commissioner who helped pave the way to regulate nicotine levels in cigarettes, came out just last week or a week and a half ago with an ingenious strategy. He's a lawyer as well as a doctor. And this was saying, if the U.S. would adopt the same ban on so-called generally recognized safe grass ingredients that Europe has, then we can really get at eliminating ultra-processed food with a whole set of standard that exists already. It's the European Union framework. And my students at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition have been really amped up for years about wanting to close the so-called grass loophole. This is what Kessler, in a very well-argued strategy, is trying to do. So that is delivering to RFK Jr. on a platter a strategy to go after ultra-processed foods by saying, this is what the European Union has done for years. We need to close that grass loophole.
What is the grass loophole?
The grass loophole.
It's not marijuana.
So, since 1959, most manufacturers have been able to self-assert that whatever they're putting into foods is safe because they've done their own studies. The government has not reviewed these studies unless there's been protest for it. And so generally recognized as safe has been something that companies have been able to declare for themselves. European Union is the opposite. You can't put anything in until they approve it. And there's lots of studies. There are literally hundreds, I think about 200 of these non-grass. They're not recognized as safe in European Union, but they are recognized as safe in the U.S. and included in thousands of food products.
Okay, pardon me for being thick as a brick. I can't be the only one, though. This has nothing to do with grass, like green grass.
Absolutely nothing. It is one S, and it's just an acronym, generally recognized as safe.
Thank you.
You should ask that.
I did not know that. I thought we were talking about fertilizing grass.
Nope,
which
we're
is
not back on
another
that.
hazard to the, which they have banned on Nantucket, by the way. Fertilizing near the water, they should ban it everywhere. We'd have a lot. You see how many beaches are closed in Massachusetts all around?
I'm just staying in the house, Margery.
Yeah,
that's it. I'm not, outdoors is overrated.
Nitrogen runoff.
Nitrogen runoff, yeah, and people keep fertilizing their lawn right up to the water's edge, and that's part of the problem. So is septic, obviously, and so is climate. But fertilizing is one of the big things. Okay, this is one of the craziest stories, but what the hell? We'll ask you about it anyway. Okay, $100 for a lobster roll with gold leaf at the Iowa State Fair, and people apparently are buying them.
So I remember restaurants in the Back Bay when I was reviewing for Boston Magazine that would put gold leaf on desserts. It was a big deal for a while. It's pretty. Apparently, it doesn't turn you into Goldfinger if you're ingesting it as opposed to getting it painted on your skin, which suffocates your skin. So it supposedly passes through the body with no effect and no harm. So that's the first thing about, it is very weird to be eating gold. It's cheap to buy gold leaf. So you can easily cut it up. If you've ever tried working with it, it flies all over the room. You've got to have something sticky that you can pick it up with and then put it on the usually chocolate dessert because it shows really nicely against chocolates or chocolate desserts. But this was an absurd lobster roll at a state fair that Tim Carmen, very funny and good columnist for the Washington Post, wrote about at the Iowa State Fair, $100 lobster roll. The important thing is you got a measly quarter pound of lobster meat in fancy butter. And then, quarter pound of lobster meat, let's just all go out to the local fish market and get a quarter pound of New England lobster meat because we could do it so much better. But they were grilling and soaking the bun in duck fat. And then they were boiling the lobster meat in so much butter that all you could taste was the butter. And then they were putting creme fraiche on top of it. Everything
no
to
truffle?
just
No
load
truffles? Because, I love the truffles all over everything. No truffles?
Thank goodness there were no truffles. Oh, hackleback caviar.
Yeah.
You're so right. So they put a caviar bump on top of it. Caviar and lobster is actually a pretty good combination. But you don't want this gunking up of all the duck fat and creme fraiche. And you certainly don't want the gold leaf. But it does point out this is taking a cue from the White House. The White House is going gold. Everything is being gilded in the White House.
Did you see the picture of the Oval Office when you looked at when Trump from behind Trump out of the resolution desk? It's like a joke. He thinks this looks great instead of like totally tacky. All that gold leaf everywhere. It's really, I don't know. But I guess we shouldn't be surprised because he did it to his apartments in New York and he did it to all the Trump hotels.
And he wants to do it to the Kennedy Center.
Okay, so this is just an example of excess and out in Iowa. Is that what this is? Is there a sociological relevance to this, or we just think it's just you can tell people you had a $100 lobster roll? And
it's really sucker born every minute. If you can get away with it and people will pay for it, go for it.
All right. Okay.
All right, Corby. We've got news from Eater, which were the Vox Media, of course, marked its 20th anniversary. This is a story in the Boston Globe by Alex Gogza, talking about another round of layoffs. And Vox Media, of course, has a number of entities and businesses. One of them, Eater, Punch, The Thrillist, and some of their travel publications. It always seems counterproductive to me. We're talking about things that people care about, like food and eating and restaurants and the food industry. Eater has been a leader in those categories, and it's shocking to me that they're on the layoff block.
It should not be shocking to you, local media maven Sue.
True.
And you should be commenting on this as much as I. It is the death of local media, and it's the rise of artificial intelligence-generated lists. So listicles, the 38 best restaurants in a certain city, that kind of made Eater's reputation. And people came to it. And you expected it to be curated in that creepy term, chosen discerningly by a group of people who knew something about food. But now, almost every list, whenever you say, best sushi restaurant near the Boston Public Library, it'll be an AI-generated list from all sorts of different sources. That's where these things are coming from. And the traffic has dropped. And, one of the comments that one of the media people quoted in the Globe story was saying is you have to stop depending on search engine optimization. I don't know what the alternative, though, is. Do you?
No. We're in a very weird place right now. And I was showing Margery the other day at South End News. As a co-publisher of South End News and editor, I use AI to help me find calendar listings that people in the South End would care about. I have it write a calendar listing article for me, but I go through as a person, as a human. I look for things that are missing, I add them, I get rid of things that aren't important. It saves me time, but I can see in the future how I would be unimportant to that, and the person reading it will just assume that a human had some, or the AI is smarter than a human. AI makes fewer mistakes, but they're not smart. It's not smarter because it can't think. So that's a challenge. It can't do that, curating or what might be the most interesting based on what your audience is.
It does a lot of crazy things, and we can feel smug, like we can spot the errors and we can go back and check the errors. But we're 2, 3, 5 years away from much more accurate AI, and therefore I do think local media is going to pretty much die out. But one thing Eater did and helped make its reputation on, not just 38 best restaurants, which was its bread and
pieces.
butter.
You brought them
Very
to our
investigative
attention.
pieces.
Yes.
And they were scrounging a little too much for dirt for my taste, and yet they were investigative journalists. And they were trying to be accurate. They weren't always accurate. But that's not something AI is going to do. They're not going to have the time to report stories that, with luck, could make a more humane and better run industry.
Yeah, but you talked a lot about how, one of the things that the lists are one of the things that are very, very attractive to people. So it's kind of like when I go to Yelp lists, I don't find those very reliable. And when Boston Magazine did lists or Eater did lists, as you say, the people were going to the restaurants and looking at the restaurants. So that the AI can't go to the restaurants, obviously, and check on the latest menu changes. So the accuracy, even if they are more accurate, where are they going to get the curated by real people information to steal from to do their AI stuff?
It's the rise of user-generated content, and so for years and years, what they've been relying on are so-called reader reports.
Yeah.
And they are often influenced by owners who will pay people to post good reports. And if I were an owner, I would pay people to do it. I'm saying that provocatively because bad Yelp reports can be so damaging and awful that you need to counteract it. So play their own game.
Right.
But that's where they're getting those ratings, and that's where they're getting it from. Often, very inaccurate, often paid for reader reports.
And Margery, you always have to be skeptical of all these lists.
Yeah.
AI or not AI, Yelp or not Yelp. I mean, I remember having a conversation with somebody telling them that one of their favorite restaurant review shows got paid to go to the restaurants and always had glowing reviews about every restaurant they went to. And look, your mouth is opening.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean that what they're saying isn't some value, but it's paid for value.
Well, because I used to work at Boston Magazine, and I think at least at the time I was working there, they took this stuff pretty seriously.
Very seriously.
Yeah. So I could rely, I guess that's what I mean. I could look at Best of Boston and have a reasonable expectation that what they said was good. And these other lists from, what's the other one, the travel company, TripAdvisor?
Yep.
Those are totally useless to me because I've been to places they recommended.
To me too.
And they were awful.
And the Improper used to have a photograph of all the judges who got together.
That's right.
And so they were actually saying, here's what the source is.
Yes.
As opposed to our editors. They would actually name them all, and so it gives you an idea. Will I agree or will I disagree?
I just go where my daughter tells me to go, and I pay for lobster and truffles and gold.
But what you say isn't just anecdotal. Most people go where someone tells them to go.
Yep.
And that is the main source of restaurant referrals, and that's really what places like Eater are up against.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
it's too
Corby.
bad because they do a lot of great journalism, and they won a bunch of James Beard Awards just like you did, Corby. Hot shots. And now they go look for jobs.
Thank you, Corby Comer, for coming in. Good to see
Thank you, Margery.
Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute and Senior Editor at the Atlantic and Senior Lecturer at the Tufts. Senior Editor at the Atlantic and Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. He's senior. Dr. Catherine Gergen-Barnett is going to join us next to talk about the gender-affirming care that some men are seeking and paying thousands of dollars just to break their leg bones in hopes that they can gain a few vertical itches. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL and streaming over at the YouTube/GBH News.
Your home for trusted local news. GBH 89.7.
For the information you need to start your day,
the stories that bring us closer to our communities,
and deep coverage on the issues that matter most.
GBH News. Online at gbhnews.org. Streaming on the GBH app. And always on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering 2 to 3 day courses and executive certificates for professionals seeking cutting-edge business insights on innovation, cybersecurity, AI, and more. Info at executive.mit.edu. And Cornerstone at Canton, an assisted living community with services designed to help seniors age in place, offering respite and trial stay options to help during recovery or when exploring new living arrangements. More at cornerstonecanton.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Sue O'Connell is in for Jim Browdy. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is going to join us here at the library tomorrow. But we're joined right now at the library, and by the way, she'll be here, I think it's 11:30, the Congresswoman is coming. We're joined now at the library by Dr. Catherine Gergen-Barnett, Vice Chair of Primary Care Innovation and Transformation at Boston Medical Center, Associate Professor at BU's Medical School, and an Aspen Institute Health Innovators Fellow. Thank you very much for coming in, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The doctor is in.
In the house.
So here's
sometimes.
I know Jamie, our producer, usually has a list of symptoms. I'm recovering from a viral infection from last week.
Yes, I got his medical update as I arrived.
So he's not
Jim
contagious.
Browdy has been texting me on vacation.
Yeah, not contagious. I took myself to an urgent care.
Family doctor is here.
Yeah, met with a doctor myself. But you know what? While I was suffering from my virus last week on the couch,
yes,
and I posted something, and suddenly everyone on X was like, "Oh, you must have gotten a shot. I'm like, no, it's just a virus. There's lots of them, and I had it, and and now I'm recovering. But it's now that time of year where those of us who run the household start making the appointments to get everyone their vaccinations and make sure they get done. And of course, with Washington and RFK Jr., you know, you already have your basic vaccine reluctance, then you have the COVID vaccine reluctance that is not about the COVID vaccine, but spreads out.
Yes.
And now we've got the federal government not helping us. What's your prediction and advice about vaccines this fall?
Good. Okay, so let's start with bread and butter. We'll talk about the flu shot. So, like you said, it's sort of back to school season. We're thinking about vaccines. The flu shot is going to be largely unaffected this year. So it will be available for children. It'll be available for older people. We are having a new flu shot that is coming out that will focus on, it's always a trivalent vaccine. So it means it has tri means 3. So it has 2 strains that are specifically for influenza A, 1 for influenza B, and then this year's flu shot will be focused on an additional influenza A strain. What we do also know, though, is that we have not yet, rolled out the new flu shot, but it will be largely available. It will be covered. We know that HHS Secretary Kennedy had come out really recommending that thimerosal was taken out of all flu vaccines. We actually already have thimerosal out of almost all, vaccines.
Did she not know that, or what?
It's great to have something to do that you've already done, right? It's nice to have the checklist where you can just check it right off.
It makes you look a little foolish, though, doesn't it? To be cruising.
Look,
you're not going to say that, of course.
It is. I'm not going to say that, and I also feel grateful that we have access to flu vaccines. So I can say that with confidence to the patients I see, and to everybody here, and to everybody who's listening. COVID vaccines, we all are aware that it's going to be a little bit more complicated this year, right? So first of all, the advisory committee that traditionally meets late August, beginning of September to say what kind of vaccines are we needing to put out right now for the strains of COVID-19, they haven't met yet. They're supposed to meet mid-September, so that already puts us a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of thinking about what's available. We also know, and I've been on your show several times since then, that Secretary Kennedy had come out saying healthy people and young people and pregnant women and kids don't need the vaccine anymore.
Yeah.
So this is what I think will sow a lot of confusion for people. And let me start with kids. So actually just today, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out and they said, we are not going to support what the federal government is saying. We are coming out with our own set of recommendations, and we are sticking to it. And what we're saying is that kids 6 months and up, really up to 2 years of age, should absolutely get the COVID-19 vaccine. And why is that? Because these kids' immune systems haven't actually ever seen coronavirus. So they are immune naive, which means that they could actually get very sick from COVID-19. And what we're also seeing is that, talking about what's happening in state versus federal, Governor Healy has come out and said, actually, as a state, we may very well be following American Academy of Pediatrics and not the federal government. So states, and Robbie Goldstein, who I know you've had also, who's terrific and doing a great job running our public health department for the state, he said, we don't want every state to have their own recommendations, their own things they're covering. Let's, as kind of blocks of states, be coming together and following the evidence, right? So we're not just one-offing it everywhere. I'm just telling your listeners, because I think this is really like every day it's changing, but it's very hopeful in terms of thinking about children being covered here, being paid for here. So thinking about Medicaid coverage here, and that is incredibly important. We do know federal government will allow for high-risk patients, so 65 and up, or people with one of many different conditions that puts you at higher risk. So it's the same list we've talked about.
Including pregnant women?
So pregnant women's not on that list. We'll talk about that in 1 second. But things that actually surprised me that have been added is physical inactivity.
Yeah.
So that's,
That's everybody.
It's great.
That's everybody. Yeah, that's everybody.
Lots of people will be covered. But no, in all seriousness, it does give us more leverage to think about those who could be covered, who may not have been covered in the past. For your point, Margery, in terms of pregnant women, we also, myself, family medicine, the American College of Obstetrician and Gynecology has also come out and said, absolutely pregnant women need to be vaccinated. We know if pregnant women are not vaccinated or should be vaccinated, the risk of stillbirth goes way up, the risk of being incredibly sick goes way up, premature delivery goes way up. So the consequences are important for us to continue to talk about. I know everyone's tired of talking about COVID-19, but this will be an important year to continue to tell people what we do know.
And will these pregnant women get the vaccine paid for too?
So again, I think it's going to be state by state.
State by state.
Yep.
But here we will?
I think that is what Healy has talked with Robbie Goldstein
Because the other
about.
thing that I've read, and actually I saw in my own family, is that when a newborn or a 2, 3, 4-month-old gets COVID, which happens, before the vaccine, they were in serious trouble at that early age.
Correct.
Now, if mom has been vaccinated, some of the antibodies or whatever they are passed on to
through the placenta.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so the baby will get sick, but not that sick.
They will be born with an immunity that wanes, but they do have some immunity that's transferred from maternal antibodies.
Which is obviously a big deal. Can you imagine if you had your baby died because you couldn't get a vaccine?
I mean, the thing is that people aren't talking about, we've recommended for over a decade that women who are pregnant around, 24, 25 weeks of pregnancy get an updated Tdap. So that's to protect against not just tetanus, but pertussis, whooping cough, right? Nobody's arguing that. We've needed that for a long time. It's not about the women getting whooping cough, it's their babies.
Yeah, and also I've been in instances where the people that are going to go visit the newborn are supposed to get an updated tuberculosis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And can I say, and not to bring it back to me again.
It's okay. You still didn't have your medical question answered.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me, doctor.
Yeah.
I was really sick last week. I had a virus. I went to the doctor. I had masked up on the way to the doctor.
Yeah.
She came in like I was Typhoid Mary. Totally, immediately gave me an EKG, a lung X-ray. I was like, a strep. I was like, okay, I just have a cough, and I feel like I got hit by a truck. But I haven't been that sick since I got COVID, and it reminded me.
Yes.
We forget how awful it is to be sick.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to die from it. You just have to miss a week of work sitting on the couch, unable to enjoy an August week. So, we need to get vaccinated for things that we can get vaccinated for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's get to this mRNA thing. One of the big achievements the Trump administration first time around is they had that war on getting whatever they called it, the race to get the vaccines out, and they did do an incredible job to get the vaccines out.
Operation Warp Speed.
Thank you very much. Now, this dingbat, RFK Kennedy Jr., I mean, what else can you say about him? Take the thermometer, well, it's already out. But anyway, now he's going after the mRNA.
Yeah.
Tell us, it seems crazy.
So there was an announcement just a couple weeks ago that there was going to be a $500 million cut in federal funding for mRNA. So everybody knows mRNA from, COVID vaccine.
Right.
I feel like that's how most people first heard about it. I want to just take a step back because that was actually not how it first developed. We've been using it for a long time. So what is mRNA? So just to remind people, because I feel like we talked about this a little bit during COVID vaccine, but we always need a refresher. So mRNAs is actually, a messenger. That's what the M is, RNA. So it's a little piece that it's like you're giving a message, right? You're giving like instructions. So they're saying, when you go into the body, I want you to make this kind of protein. And when you make that kind of protein, the body will say, ooh, that's a foreign piece of protein. I should create antibodies to fight it. So in the case of COVID-19, the protein looked just like the spiky part of COVID-19. So it created this ability to have a fake kind of protein that never entered genetic cell, by the way, dissolves on its own, the messenger RNA, vaccines, but created this very cool way of the body recognizing the COVID-19 cell and the spiky part and then developing antibodies. So it's really easy and fast. Not easy, they're amazing scientists. It's fast to create those instructions, and you can do them much more quickly than traditional vaccines. So traditional vaccines, you have to take the virus, you have to grow it in this huge vat. Sometimes you put it in an egg, right, for the flu. You have to distill it down, and then finally you have it. It takes months to make it. We know messenger RNA is fast, hence Operation Warp Speed.
Yes. The great Trump victory.
And actually, Trump and Kennedy are having a little tete-a-tete on this, because Trump has said this was really important.
Yeah.
So I actually am grateful to hear that. So all of this incredible work that's been done right now in science is we have developed, or scientists are developing mRNA vaccines that can target things like cervical cancer and RSV and melanoma and lung cancer. So
and pancreatic
cancer,
which is a big killer of people.
Absolutely.
Very quickly.
Colorectal cancer, breast cancer, all things we've talked about a lot. So it's this incredible tool that can open up a whole apparatus of healing.
But my understanding
techniques.
is, Doctor, and correct me if I'm wrong, that what he wants to do is stop this research.
Correct.
So people that are, if you get pancreatic cancer, you're in big trouble. If you get a lot of cancers, you're in big trouble.
Sure.
Why?
This
is life-saving stuff.
I think it is a moment of understanding, again, that some people who are making the decisions don't necessarily have the background or scientific training in terms of thinking about what's fear and what's fact, and how do we discern?
But he's done it, hasn't he? He's cut this funding.
He has cut it, but who knows? This could be reversed. I think the really important thing is for the lay person and for those who think about advocacy, both individually and on a communal level, to understand that mRNA vaccine technology is not just about COVID-19, because it's really gotten wrapped up into the politics of that versus understanding all of the ways that mRNA technology can progress the way that we do science and healing techniques in the future.
Yeah, it's just to underscore again, how you've seen it in your own life, where somebody went in 30 years old, got breast cancer 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they were in big trouble.
Yeah,
now
it's changed a lot.
It has changed a lot because of all this research.
Yeah.
And as I said before, pancreatic cancer, that's a big killer.
Yeah.
Melanoma, if you don't get it right early, that's a big killer. Why we would shut down research that could save all these lives just seems, and the fact that he's getting away with this is really.
Well, I think, it's not over till it's over. I think there's this is an announcement. I think there's a lot of scientific community and, the press and others who are, including, President Trump, who may push back on this.
I hope so.
I think the technology is not going anywhere, and if it's paused, which would be a real shame, but it will and can be reaccelerated.
Okay, so what's going on with pesticides? Another cheerful subject.
Should we talk about? We can talk about. I don't know, something more fun. But we can talk about pesticides. This is another example of sort of from how do you write something down, in this case, the Make America Healthy Again, to then creating strategy. And as I have shared with you all and other outlets, many of us on the front lines are involved in policy or thinking about, population health. We're thrilled about some of the reducing of processed foods and food coloring and all of that. And again, the pesticide story is that it sounds like the press got hold potentially of a strategy document before it is out. So again, we need to wait for the actual strategy document to come out, but it sounds like there's not real teeth yet in terms of how do we get certain companies like corn and soy to actually reduce pesticide use. So it's thinking about how do we educate people, how do we make them more aware, but not necessarily the teeth that we need in terms of reducing some of the pesticide. The good news is we have companies like Mars coming out and saying we are going to make food dye-free M&Ms.
Yeah, that's good.
And Skittles. And Starburst.
What will the M&Ms and Skittles look like, though? That's my question. If they're all like light brown.
If they're just melting in your mouth, who cares?
Yeah.
If you think they have a flavor and they don't,
I
right?
know.
That's the other
thing.
thing.
It's not like the blue tastes any different than the brown.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah,
listen,
brown.
I worked in the record industry where we had riders where we had to remove M&Ms, green M&Ms from people's backstage pass.
I think Fruit Loops tried to do food dye free for a little while, and their sales,
Why would you
their
eat them
sales
without the
crashed. So I'm not here to defend Fruit Loops or M&Ms, but I'm hopeful that some of these industries are following the right trail.
All right, this is the biggest story of the day.
The biggest story of the day.
That we have for you.
The lead lengthening?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
This is gruesome.
So
this was not my choice.
No, I know.
This was somebody who shall not be named.
Jamie. If you saw the movie The Materialists,
which I haven't.
Okay, this was a theme. There are some men who are spending lots and lots of money. I think $250,000, $32,000 in some places to have their legs broken and reset. So this is gender affirming care, by the way. So let Ron DeSantis know that so they can gain a couple of inches in their height. I know there have been, for some people who have really suffered, and I'll use their term, from being short, they have used this in the past for adolescents and young people.
Well,
but I'm actually okay with this, Margery, because women get breast augmentation. Women dye their hair. They do all sorts of things.
Well, dyeing your hair is not like having your legs broken and the bones stretched. I mean, did you see Zelensky yesterday? He's standing next to Donald Trump, who's 6'2" or 6'3". I would say my money is on Vladimir Zelensky as being a hero of major proportions. He's shorter than everybody.
He was in a suit yesterday.
What is he, like 5'7"? So he's not a tall guy.
I haven't asked.
But anyway, tell us about this latest. This is not dyeing your hair.
So people can do whatever they want with their bodies.
They can do whatever they want.
Okay. This was a Guardian story that was sent to me. I'm sure there are lots of stories. As you mentioned, there was a movie about it on cosmetic leg lengthening. That apparently has become a thing where, to your point, it's not just men and women, although women much more rarely they get their femurs broken in several places. Sometimes their tibia, like the bottom bones, if they want more height, it's broken up, and then it's like, it's very barbaric. So they then have these poles put on the side of their legs, and they have to put some, rotate the poles several times a day.
It's like the rack in the torture movies.
It's like the rack.
Like the
and then the idea is that as the bones go further apart, new bone grows. So it's extraordinarily painful. I mean, somebody who's that committed to a few inches is really committed. But I will say that I also did a little research because everybody was saying, average height for women is 5'4", average height for men is 5'9.5", and I said, well, obviously that is super skewed towards certain countries. So WHO actually put out a report where you could look at every different country and their average height. And I will say, in Bolivia, the average height of a woman is 4'10", and a man is 5'4". So I think anybody
Americans
who needs
are big.
Americans are tall.
Yeah.
And actually, we're, a lot of people in a lot of different countries are sort of the same height. But I will say that if somebody is that committed to leg lengthening, maybe they should move.
They should move.
That's right.
And not go through all that pain or not worry. And,
when I was in China, I felt very tall, I have to say. I walked around, and suddenly I was with my friend who was 5'7", and I went, wow, we are giants.
Yeah, this guy is talking about he's never had such pain in his life.
Yeah.
He's like tortured.
But now he's happy.
But he's so happy.
He went from 5'6" to 5'9".
Yeah, and he's taller than his wife.
Do what what's his name for DeSantis does. What's he put things in his shoes?
Yeah, he's on the wheels.
Yeah, put a little lift in your shoe or wear cowboy boots or something.
All right, so the message here, get your flu shot, get your COVID shot.
Yes,
maybe
don't worry about your height.
Move to Bolivia.
Yeah, there you go. That's the takeaway.
There it is. All right, we've been speaking with Dr. Catherine Gergen-Barnett. She's the vice chair of of primary care innovation and transformation at Boston Medical Center, associate professor at Boston University
She didn't
Medical
want to
Center.
talk about this, Sue. She didn't want to talk about this, and somebody forced her into it. We don't know who that could be.
They tortured her. And an Aspen Institute Health Innovators Fellow. Coming up after a quick break, Margery and I go down into the gutter for two more things. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Mayor Michelle Wu is rejecting Attorney General Pam Bondi's demand that Boston end its sanctuary city policies. The latest in New England sports news with GBH's Esteban Bustillos. And in his new memoir, poet Raymond Antibus recounts a life between the deaf world and the hearing world and how he feels displaced in both. That and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And M. Steinert & Sons Pianos, the region's authorized Steinway dealer, presents the return of the Symphony Hall Piano Event, Friday, September 5th through Sunday the 7th at Symphony Hall, msteinert.com. And the MBTA Commuter Rail, helping riders skip the stress of city traffic and parking. Just take the train. You can plan your trip at mbta.com/massbytrain.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live in the Boston Public Library. Sue O'Connell is in for Jim Browdy. So it's time for our two more things segments, but we decided to focus on one more thing today because we were just so shocked by this one. Sometimes you have to go against protocol. A recent instance of a public figure using Jim Browdy's favorite phrase in action, do you know who I am? So let's set the scene. We have a lot of sound from this because it came from the police body cameras, and somebody videoed what was going on there and then somehow got it to the press. So what happened is these three people are at a Clark Cookhouse, which is a big deal restaurant down on Bannister's Wharf in Newport, beautiful place. And apparently the management there was concerned because there were people that had too much to drink and they wanted to get them out of the restaurant. And when they wouldn't get out of the restaurant, they called the police. So here is the first sound of the police showing up on the scene to escort a woman, a Special Assistant Attorney General in Rhode Island, Devin Hogan Flanagan, out of the Clark Cookhouse restaurant.
I want you to turn your body cam off. Protocol is that you turn it off. If a citizen requests it to turn it off, she's a lawyer.
So they want you guys to leave?
Yes, we're going to.
Let's just leave. Let's just make it easy, okay?
We're going to make it easy.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move forward a little bit, 2+ minutes into the dispute. By the way, the police officer said, why don't you just leave? And if she had just left, this would be all over by now.
Cops were very patient.
And again, this is the Rhode Island Special Assistant Attorney General, Devin Hogan Flanagan. Here we go.
I know that your protocol is...
So you're trespassing, so we got to leave now. Unless you want to be an
We're not trespassing. You haven't notified us that we're trespassing. Number one.
What did I
Number
just
two.
say to you? You're
You're
trespassing. Let's go.
Number one.
I don't
Number
want to
two.
arrest you guys.
You're not going to arrest us. Number two.
So let's
is
leave.
that
We gotta go. We gotta go.
protocol
Let's go.
is
Let's
to make
go.
the citizen protocol is.
Okay, in the video, if you're watching this, you would be out of your mind.
Yeah, you
by
gotta
annoyance.
look it up.
Okay, and now here is the end to the Rhode Island Special Assistant Attorney General Devin Hogan Flanagan's dispute with law enforcement outside the Clark Cook House.
I'm an AG.
Let's go. Honey, you're not. She's not being arrested. Let's go.
I'm not being arrested. You're putting me in cuffs. I'm not being
Okay.
arrested.
Do you have any weapons on you?
No. But you're going to regret this.
Yeah.
You're going to regret it. I'm an AG.
Okay, so all this time, you got to look this up because
Yeah.
we really couldn't do it justice. But basically, she keeps saying, "I'm an AG, I'm an AG, I'm an AG." And the cop says at one point, "I don't care what
Yeah.
you are. You aren't leaving." They're trying to get them to leave. They just could have left, and they kept fighting with these very patient police officers. And the guy that manages the Clark Cook House at the podium in the front, talking about how apparently they've been disruptive inside the restaurant. So they didn't sound very drunk, but apparently they were acting like they may have had a few too many.
Right, and citing the law wrong, by the way, by telling the police
That's right.
officer that he didn't know what the law was. They can, police officers can shut a camera off if the person requests it due to personal issues. They're out in a public street, so he was following the law. And it was also a gender reversal here. The guy that was with him was standing with his hands
the
clasped
husband.
in front of him, trying to say, calm down, I'm here. And then he had his hands up at some point. Listen, police officers in resort communities and in downtown areas when people are out, especially people who think they know more than the cops, I light a candle for them every single day because this is the kind of police work that drives you absolutely crazy. You have these people out to dinner. All they had to do was leave. They didn't have to engage. And I loved when he said, "You're trespassing." And she said, "Well, you haven't told me I'm trespassing yet." Well, I just told you you're trespassing.
And then they try to put the woman in the cruiser, and she's screaming and yelling bloody murder, and she won't get in the cruiser, and he keeps saying, "Move your feet, move your feet, move your feet," and she just keeps refusing to do it. I don't know what the problem was there.
Well, I
guess they thought she was the AG and she'd get away with it.
Well, I'm the AG, and also, if they tell you they're going to arrest you, they probably are. So if a cop gives you the opportunity to leave, leave.
Okay, one quick thing. This
Yeah.
was the #1 story this morning on the Boston Globe's website. So if you're looking for it, go to the Boston Globe website. It was leading the story because you have the whole video of these two women giving the cops a hard time.
And be nice to police officers in resort communities.
That's
All right,
right.
coming after the 1 o'clock news, we have NBC Sports Boston's Trenny Casey. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan, in for Margery Egan. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm an AG.
One individual can make a difference. A group of individuals can make a big difference. GBH is founded on listener support, and it's not about how much you give. It's about how many people get involved. Be the next to make a difference at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, presenting Van Gogh, the Roulin Family Portraits, featuring Van Gogh's portraits of the Roulin family and the deep bonds of friendship behind them. On view through September 7th. More at mfa.org. And Subaru of New England, the all-wheel drive 2025 Subaru Crosstrek, is committed to keeping your loved ones safe on adventures this summer. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Margery Egan, ahead on hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library across America. Ballparks, stadiums, and sports arenas are ditching their workforce in favor of automated, AI-driven experiences. We'll talk with Trenny Casey from NBC Sports Boston about where the industry's headed. Plus, male cheerleaders with the NFL's Minnesota Vikings are clapping back at MAGA critics.
I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy. Then our Tuesday ends with you. We'll open our phone and text lines. As weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy are changing thousands of people's appearances, they're also changing relationships. From cold shoulders from friends and loved ones to Questions about why someone wouldn't be on the GLP-1s. Can you relate? And what other odd reasons have your friendships been tested? Call or text next on BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says he is working on a bilateral meeting between his counterparts from Russia and Ukraine, and depending on how that goes, a trilateral meeting with him would follow. Russia says it remains open to all of it, but as NPR's Charles Maines reports from Moscow, the Kremlin remains vague on the timing of the talks.
In an interview on state television, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow was not refusing any format of meetings, be they between Putin and Zelensky or eventually including President Trump. Yet Lavrov warned preparations for such events take time. His comments suggested Moscow was looking to slow-walk Trump's calls for a Putin-Zelensky meeting in the coming days or weeks. Trump says Putin agreed to the bilateral talks to be followed by a trilateral meeting, including Trump, following a phone call he placed to the Russian leader Monday. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov was more circumspect, saying only Moscow was considering the possibility of holding higher-level direct talks with Ukraine. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
The White House says dozens of homeless encampments have been cleared in Washington, D.C. A week ago, President Trump sent hundreds of federal agents and National Guard troops to the city. NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports it is not clear where the people who've been displaced have gone.
Homeless service providers say many likely opted to stay outside, moving around to evade authorities. Some are in shelters. The city made more beds available, or hotels paid for by community members. Jesse Rabinowitz with the National Homelessness Law Center says the mass displacement will make it even harder to eventually connect people to housing.
It was so fast that I worry people were not able to save vital documents, medication, heirlooms, clothes, things like that.
The White House says it has not arrested any people for being homeless, and service providers are relieved about that. But they suggest the money this federal surge is costing could have gone toward affordable housing instead. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Washington.
Texas Republicans are pursuing a redrawn congressional map in their state that would give the GOP 5 additional U.S. House seats. California Democrats are looking to counterbalance with their own new map. Laura Fitzgerald with Cap Radio has the latest.
It puts together somewhat unlikely areas. For example, one district would include communities in Modoc County all the way up north near the Oregon border with Marin County, which is way down near San Francisco. Those are two very politically different regions, and under this proposal, they'd have the same congressional representative. Democrats here say the plan is to vote on the map this week, and then this will go to the voters so that they can have the final say in November.
Cap Radio's Laura Fitzgerald reporting state lawmakers in Texas and California have been advancing their respective measures on a redistricting battle that ultimately could decide the balance of power in Congress in next year's midterm elections. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Try as he might, Boston mayoral candidate Josh Kraft continues to look for ways to gain ground on his 30-point deficit behind Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. According to the Globe, the latest is that Kraft claims Wu is illegally using public resources for her campaign, and experts say that is going to be pretty difficult to prove. Report says that every elected official enjoys the incumbency advantage when seeking re-election, but Kraft is alleging that Wu has crossed that line into improper behavior by weaponizing her office to benefit her campaign. When asked if Kraft was correct in his allegations, Wu simply said no. Meanwhile, Wu campaign advisors say they know the laws and they follow the laws. As Hurricane Erin makes its way north, the East Coast will begin to feel its impact. The National Weather Service says a high surf advisory will be in effect until Thursday night for southern Plymouth and Barnstable counties. Can also expect large breaking waves increasing each day, peaking on Thursday with waves of about 4 to 8 feet expected in the surf zone. There'll be life-threatening swimming and surfing conditions and localized beach erosion. Inexperienced swimmers should remain out of the water due to life-threatening surf conditions and rip currents. In sports, Red Sox Orioles back at it at Fenway tonight, and the qualifying rounds of the U.S. Open tennis tournament continue in Flushing Meadows, New York. Another cool and comfortable day on tap today. We've got a little sun, we've got some clouds, and we have a 71-degree day in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, home of the Name Your Price tool, so drivers can see coverage options at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. Sue O'Connell is in for Jim Browdy, who's on vacation. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back here tomorrow. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley will be with us at 11:30, I believe. Yeah, she'll be with us here at the library at 11:30. We're joined now, though, at the library desk by Trenny Casey, anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston and BPR contributor. Hello,
Hi,
Trenny
lady.
Casey.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Jenny, I still love you. I want you
Oh my
to
God,
know.
I had a dream a few weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago.
So we work together. We're in the same space.
I saw you over
Sue
there
and I
kibitzing
yes,
about
Sue,
the office.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sue and I work together. We're in the same building, and I don't know. I was just having all these like anxiety dreams, and one of my anxiety dreams was that Sue O'Connell wouldn't talk to me at work, and I was trying so hard to make her like me again. I was like, I don't know why Sue doesn't like me, and I woke up, and you know, like you forget about a dream, but then you see a person, and Sue is walking past
and her
me.
face like dropped.
And I go,
I'm like, oh my God.
I go, Sue, I had a dream you didn't want to talk to me anymore. And she just gave me a big hug.
We hug. A consensual hug.
Yeah, a consensual
that
hug.
I cleared through
Consensual
HR, so we're all
Well,
good.
I'm glad. That's a lovely
Yeah, it's a
story.
lovely little workplace
I love
story.
Sue.
I love
That's a
Trenny.
lovely story.
All right, so is there still love over at ESPN with Spike Lee and Colin Kaepernick? The documentary series has been dropped. They say, ESPN says,
Creative
differences.
So
We're suspicious.
So
Yeah.
I'm suspicious as well. So when I first saw this headline yesterday, I only saw the Spike Lee, Colin Kaepernick part of it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder, like, if they had an agreement and Spike wanted to do something and then Kaepernick changed his mind. Like, that happens sometimes. Like, that would, to me, would be like a real, true creative difference. But then when I saw ESPN was involved, I was like, interesting. Because ESPN just happened to, a week ago, acquire the rights to NFL properties. So they are now owners of NFL, like I think it's also NFL Films, like NFL Films, NFL Network. It's all part of the Disney conglomerate. And so now the NFL, they've always been, listen, so is NBC and better with the NFL as well. When you pay that much money to have the rights to a league, there are certain things just certain rules you kind of have to abide by. But they're probably not as stringent if, like, you own the league property. So that was the first thing I thought about that the league headquarters looked at this project and said,
no.
So what? You're going to have Colin Kaepernick, a whole entire documentary with Spike Lee, on your network that makes us look bad and makes us look racist. And, like, we blackballed Colin Kaepernick, and I'm sure they put the kibosh on it. However, I did see in this article in The Athletic, which, of course, is tied to the New York Times, that it doesn't sound like Spike Lee and Kaepernick had the issue. It might just be that they can shop it and put it somewhere else. And now, more than ever before, I want another entity to pick up this documentary because I want to see what ESPN didn't want us to.
Well, I would just love to see a documentary about him. I find him a fascinating person, a really gutsy guy who stood up for what he believed in and then
lost his entire, people say, he wanted to be a starting quarterback, but there were points where he would have been happy just being on a roster. Like, you cannot tell me that in his prime, he was not as good as some of the quarterbacks that were on rosters out there. I don't buy it. I just do not buy it.
And the argument, and I'm not a football expert, but I can tell you that as much as I know about Colin Kaepernick and how many really bad quarterbacks there are at his time during the NFL, he could have easily been on the practice team of almost every single team.
Could have been he could have been a backup quarterback.
Right. And the fact that they let that fester and let what happened happen is on them. But I guarantee we'll see what Spike Lee. Yes.
Okay. Speaking of the NFL,
which a lot of people seem to be doing right now in other ways.
Yeah.
Speaking of the NFL, there's
bending the knee, though.
That's right.
Bending the knee. Remember that was a big deal. We talked about that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's kind of just faded away.
Michelle Wu's not doing it.
God bless her.
Not doing it.
She is not.
I saw what she put out today, the statement. Stay strong, Michelle.
The non-knee benders, you know what most of them have in common?
They're women?
Women.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, Lynn Cheney didn't bend a knee. She didn't bend a knee. So a lot of it's not is women, which I find very heartening. Anyway, speaking of women and men, big brouhaha with the male cheerleaders, the Minnesota Vikings. What is this?
This is so unbelievable to me. Like, listen, I don't think it's any secret. I lean to the left. Those are my political leanings. I am definitely a more progressive human being. And it always cracks me up that the way that the right likes to attack the left is by saying that they're triggered by everything. We're snowflakes. Everything bothers us, right? So the Minnesota Vikings decide, and listen, this is not groundbreaking. They're not the first NFL team to ever have male cheerleaders. There are male cheerleaders on almost every single high school, college squad.
Ronald Reagan,
George W.
Bush, Mitt Romney, Trent Lott.
Oh, I didn't know all that, but there you go.
Male cheerleaders.
So there you go. So some of our top Republican leaders have been male cheerleaders, but the Vikings, I guess for some reason it just must be like the time that we live in, and maybe because social media is more prevalent, and maybe these two men who are now on it's like a sort of cheer dance squad, you know, a little bit more. I don't know if you guys watch America's Sweethearts, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders on Netflix.
I missed it.
It's actually a great docuseries.
It
I really
is?
like it. Yes, it's like a guilty pleasure. I really like it. But they're dancers, right? So these two guys now made the Minnesota Vikings cheer team, and they got just absolutely just trolled by MAGA.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Football has to be one of the more homoerotic sports there is. I mean, wrestling obviously is right up there.
Everybody.
They're wearing their tight tights. They're out there slapping each other. They're wrestling. There's a lot of homoerotic stuff going on the football field. And they're freaking out about a couple of guys who are,
wearing shorts and T-shirts on the sideline, shaking their booty.
Dancing. Like the women who are also doing the same thing.
Exactly.
So can we just acknowledge it's just kind of like a bread and circus erotica, like Gillette Stadium, let's go. How about that?
Well, I don't know where to go with that, so I'm just going to let Sue have her rant and move on. But anyway, these two cheerleaders kind of clapped back at everybody and made fun of them, which is really all that you can do, right? It's just so ridiculous. Like, I don't understand what's the big deal. Like, someone said, of course, I'm reading in the article, I'm not going to buy tickets to see the Vikings anymore. And of course, the Minnesota Vikings are like, literally no one has canceled their season tickets over this.
Yeah.
It's all just bluster, and they're all like, how? Then don't watch the cheerleaders. Like if it's so offensive to you to see a guy dancing on the sidelines, then just don't watch them. Like you do have that choice. But I love these two guys who are like, I'm going to use my social media. We're just going to make fun of you for being soft.
I hope that someone will maybe take their shirt off in the stands and show us their beer belly and then paint everything, because that's really much better.
Yes,
that's much better.
What I prefer to see.
Yes,
we're gonna change the order here a little bit, because you had notified us about some breaking news about what's going on with the WNBA team, women's basketball team, possible coming to Boston, not looking very good at the moment.
So this is becoming kind of I don't know how you feel about it, Sue. I know you've been kind of interested in this story. To me, it's becoming an infuriating story. So let me just give you a little background. Maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I've lost track of time in the summer. We found out that Steve Pagliuca, one of the former I think he might still be a minority owner in the Boston Celtics, made a bid to buy the Connecticut Sun, $325 million purchase price and an additional $100 million to a dedicated practice facility, with the caveat that the team would move to Boston and play at the TD Garden. So the WNBA wouldn't approve the sale, wouldn't even take it in front of their board of governors to give them the option to vote on this sale. And then Mark Lasry, I think is how you say, Lasry, I always forget how you say it. He used to own the Milwaukee Bucks, I should know, but whatever. It's another billionaire. Comes in and says, all right, now I'll match the 325, but I'll keep the team in Connecticut playing in Hartford at the XL Center. And so some people think, okay, like the Mohegan tribe will decide which of these two offers are better. They'll present it to the board of governors. The board of governors will vote. Done. The sale happens. Well, now Ramona Shelburne, who is a longtime, really still good, like sort of true journalist at ESPN, who covers the NBA and the WNBA, is now reporting that the WNBA doesn't want the Connecticut Sun to stay in Connecticut. They want them to move to a bigger market, but they don't want them to move to Boston and this is where I get really irritated, because Boston didn't apply for a expansion franchise the last 3 times that the expansion tag has been available. And so they want to move the team to Houston. Even I don't know if Houston applied for a franchise. If you like Houston that much, did they apply for a franchise? Because I'm assuming that if they would have applied for an expansion team for a franchise, you would have given it to them, because it seems like a market you really want to get into. This just seems to me like the WNBA is being just whiny little babies. Like, hey, you didn't get in on it when we gave you the opportunity, so now you can't have it at all. And it's like, so you're going to miss out on a tremendous sports market in Boston, a huge financial investment, and an investment in the facilities for these women. Like, one of the biggest complaints about female athletes is that they do not have facilities that match the standards of male teams. And at least on the surface, it looks like Steve Pagliuca's bid would not only be the highest bid ever for a women's sports franchise in any sport, let alone the WNBA, but they're also going to invest in their practice facilities so that they have the best of the best. And this is a city that, from what we understand, the Celtics are fine with it. We know Governor Healy would love to have a WNBA team in Boston.
We've seen the overwhelming fan support.
And it would be a New England team. It would keep a team near its roots. From what I understand, they would even be open to playing some games in Providence, some games in Hartford and Connecticut, to sort of give it that New England flair, but it would be a Boston team. But no, the WNBA doesn't like the process of how it goes. It's like, fine, you want to be a loser organization, then you've already screwed up the whole Caitlin Clark thing. You've allowed players to bash her verbally, to literally physically push her around on the floor. She's been injured all year, all because they don't like that somebody that hasn't played for a long time is the face of the franchise. Shut up. It makes me so mad. I know that's not like an NPR thing. I feel like that's like something we say on Sports Talk Radio.
It's okay.
On the lesser stations. But I'm just so tired of the whining. Do you want to be a top-tier sports league, or do you not? Like, make up your mind, because if you want to just be a middling franchise that has middling players and doesn't pay anybody anything and doesn't have top-tier facilities, then fine. Then move your stupid team to Houston. Yep. Push Caitlin Clark around to the point that she goes and plays overseas, or she gets hurt and she can't play anymore, and then your league goes back to just being under a rock.
So whom do we blame for this?
I blame the league. 100%.
But I mean,
Kathy Engelbert, everybody's in charge of the league. You should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed.
And you are taking a huge shift in momentum towards women's sports, and you are, again, this is so like lowbrow sports talk radio, but you are peeing all over it.
Right.
Okay, that's it. That's my rant.
You know, and the thing too, Margery, to understand, I've been saying for years that as soon as people start betting on women's sports will start being more accepted.
But they are, and they are. Yes.
So we're at this precipice right now with all of that's happening in the WNBA, with the soccer, all the things. We actually have a moment in women's sports where we could move to the next level, right? And a Boston team, I mean, Boston, right? And having a WNBA Boston team here would make all the business financial sense in the world.
And it'd be here. They play in the summer, so it's not going to be competing with there's like a slight overlap, I believe, in like September, October, when you have preseason hockey and basketball games, that there's that slight overlap. But think about it. Boston would then be home to 3 women's professional leagues. You would be home to the Boston Fleet in high school in hockey. You'd be home to the Boston Legacy in the NWSL, and you'd be home to the Boston Sun, or whatever they would decide to call the Sun if they changed their name, in the WNBA. You would have 3 major women's sports leagues in Boston, just like they have in New York, just like they're about to have, I think, in Philadelphia. You would be, it's a world-class sports city, and you're like, no, you didn't fill out the application, so get in the back of the line.
Okay. I think we know where Trini stands. Trini stands on that one.
It's just so annoying. It drives me bananas that people have been fighting and fighting and fighting for women's sports to get the attention that it deserves, and now to me it's so short-sighted and petty, and just it's silly. It's a silly business decision.
Okay, but by the way, let me ask you a really stupid question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does the Garden have? I know the Bruins and the Celtics play there obviously, and they have their locker rooms and their sports facilities. Are there women's locker rooms there?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know because no women's team plays there full time.
Yeah.
So that's a great question.
But they would have their own if they came up. I mean, do the Bruins and the Celtics share?
No.
They each have their
because
own.
honestly, have you ever been in a hockey locker room?
No.
It's terrible.
Oh my God, the
But when
smell
when the
because of
bands
the
play
pads
there,
and stuff.
there are other rooms for other.
Yeah.
Like when a band plays there, there's a whole underground backstage suite of
That's
places
you know what,
you
though,
could
Margery,
be.
that's a great question. I don't know where so let's say when the Sun and the Fever come, I don't know where their locker rooms are. I don't know if they use the Celtics locker room and then one uses the visiting NBA
We get on
room.
that today.
Yeah,
Okay?
I'll ask
Get
around on that today.
Okay, so let's talk about AI taking over checkout at all these sporting venues.
So this is partially why they
went on strike.
They went on strike at Fenway Park. So I was at Fenway on Saturday. I went to the Sox Marlins game. Way to almost blow it.
Why are they wearing green?
Because those are their City Connect jerseys.
Okay,
They're
just
actually pretty
checking.
cool. So on Friday they wore their
I was
City.
so confused.
So their City Connect are green, which I don't know, it's like the T or the Green Monster maybe? They're like the Green Monster ones. I honestly don't know. On Saturday they wore their red and their yellow and blue like their marathon ones.
Yeah,
and then
that
I
one
think
I
on
get.
Sunday they just wore their
Right,
regular
just checking.
homes.
I was confused.
But so I utilized the AI automated checkout. I didn't really like it.
You didn't?
No, but listen, I'm like a middle-aged woman. I don't like change.
Yeah.
So, I didn't love that I had to go to a kiosk and try to figure it out. And then you get a slip printed out. And then you wait to the side, and then they call your number, kind of like you do at like a Dunkin' or a Starbucks.
Yeah, or like they do at Shake Shack.
Or like at Shake Shack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so someone
Shake
just
Shack.
handed you the thing. I don't know. I mean, listen, we just got hot dogs. Also, could you put relish out by the hot dogs? There was only
Never
mustard.
any relish.
There's never any relish. They took the relish away.
Why did they take the
You have
relish
to
out?
ask for the relish, and I don't know why. I like relish on my hot dogs, and it's really annoying.
But you can't. But you know what? I didn't think to ask for it because I didn't interact with a human except for them to put the thing out with the ticket in. Now, when you get beer or booze or like we do, like the seltzers, those still have humans, but there are some. So this kiosk we went to, all of the shutters were down, and then there were these computers that you go in and you put it. I will say this, for the most part, it does kind of make the line move faster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't, because lots of people, there's glitches with computers and stuff. And then you just go to a side window to pick it up. But I can understand how people who for years have maybe you're a teacher or a seasonal employee, or maybe you're just someone who has to work 2 jobs, is trying to put a kid through college or something. And so you've been working at Fenway Park for all of these years. And the woman in the article made a really good point. I don't know that we tipped.
Yeah.
I didn't pay for it. We were just kind of taking turns. So I don't know if the person, if there was an option to tip, but
And
you're
who are
probably
you tipping?
And who are you tipping?
Yep.
I suppose you're tipping the person who is, getting your food ready for you and then putting it out there. But I feel like with no human interaction, you're less likely. So I would hope that with maybe tipping going down, and I'm sure this is part of what they were fighting for with the strike, is that you increase wages. But I mean, this has to concern anyone who works in an industry, that quite frankly, you don't quote unquote need human interaction, whether it's a grocery store, a department store, a concession stand, any sort of food service, type, industry where you may not need a server or a bartender. It changes the whole dynamic of the experience. Personally, I don't like it. As a former waitress and bartender, I like interacting with people. I think it's part of the experience of when you go somewhere. But in terms of efficiency, listen, I guess maybe have all the options.
Yeah.
Maybe have almost like a grocery store, have a self-serve or a full-service area, or like a gas station. Do it that way might be a better way to keep people employed, but also for people who don't really care. I would rather have the option.
I agree.
Okay, our staff just got some sound of the Major League Baseball commentators reacting to the stunning catch by a San Francisco Giants outfielder. So set it up for us, then we're going to play them reacting to the catch.
Okay, so I just saw this catch yesterday. Someone called it a little league catch because it's sort of a circus. So it's June Lee. June Hoon Lee. Thank you, June Hoon Lee, San Francisco Giants right fielder. There's a ball hit out into the corner, like where McCovey Cove is, and he makes a tremendous, but I don't know if I'll call it acrobatic. He uses his whole body to make the catch.
He uses his whole body to make the catch. Okay, here's the sound of the commentators reacting to that catch on Sunday.
This is hit out into Triples Alley, and John Lulay makes the catch. Did that end up between his legs? I think he caught it between the knees. He did. I don't care what anybody says. That's the catch of the decade. Not of the year, not of the day, not of the week, not of the homestand, the decade.
Okay, he caught it between his knees.
So
that's very unusual.
Yeah,
needless to say,
so
when you have a glove in your hand, you think you would catch it in your glove.
So this is why I'm not going to call it the catch of the decade. Because it was a mistake.
Yeah.
He slid to catch it, and he got it like in the webbing, or the palm of his glove, not the webbing. So you should be able to, if you're making a catch in the outfield or anywhere, you should be able to slide, get it, grip it, pull it, so you can catch it and trap it in your mitt. He caught it because of how he slid, and it was like, listen, he stopped the ball from going into the corner. That in that sense, it was a very athletic move. But he slid, it kind of hit him on like the back palm of his hand, like near his wrist, bounced up, and he did have the wherewithal to trap the ball within his knees, and then duck waddle to get up, and then he pulls the ball out between his legs. So like it was a heads up play.
Wait a minute. So he was on his back when he caught the ball between his knees?
Yeah, he was kind of sliding. Like if you see it, he's kind of like sliding, I guess, on his left side. And the ball kind of hits off the palm of his glove, and it kind of goes between his knees. Like it's a little bit like a whoops, like you're opening, like you drop something off of a table, and you're like, oh my god, and you quick close your legs to catch it. Like
I
don't know, is that like when I do that when I'm eating dinner? Is that like the catch of the century? I'm not sure.
But that is considered an
nice
out.
Catch.
It's considered an out.
It's considered out because it didn't touch the ground.
Didn't touch the ground.
I didn't know that.
I don't know. I feel I'm not going to call it the catch of the decade.
I have to say, whenever I see elite athletes playing up front of all levels, I am always amazed at how their body, mind, where they are in the world, what's happening, so aware. It is always astonishing to me. I feel like I'm just sleepwalking through life, and they are doing all these things, coordinating their body and the ball and
not
what's
all
going
the time,
on.
though. Sometimes it's like the Benny Hill show. So.
Okay.
The Benny Hill show.
Well, I know we're running out of time, but before you go, I mean, we've talked a lot about Jordan Hudson.
Just kidding.
We've talked a lot about Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick, who
could
be her
what I
grandfather.
do, Margery? I walk through NBC Boston Sports, and I say things like, "Where's my Jordan? I need a Jordan," and that's the look I get all the time.
Exactly. Well, it does seem we all saw the incredible pictures of Bill Belichick. Speaking of lying on his back with his arms and his legs up in the air, kind of like a fly that was down on its back, but lying across his feet,
doing just like any grandfather.
Was the Jordan Hudson, who was a cheerleader herself and an acrobatic type herself, but apparently she does a lot of yoga. And we can now see the influence of that relationship on Bill Belichick.
Yeah, it has inspired him to have his team do yoga. As a recovery day, an active recovery. He sort of like brought this into the, I don't know.
The culture.
The culture of UNC football. We'll see if their minds are calm and they beat TCU on September 1st.
Well, it's nice that he's not just doing Patriot stuff. There,
well,
right?
It's funny because funny you say that because he has shown like all of these old Patriots videos and told all these old Patriots stories and all these things. But I will say one of the knocks on him when he is with the Patriots is that he just kept doing things the same way and it wasn't working. So this is something new that he has decided to
try.
Jordan. Well, I remember.
No, we do not encourage her. It's like encouraging a toddler to eat more sugar.
We should point out that Jordan apparently inspired him, but Tom Brady was seen at Baptiste Taught Yoga years ago during yoga when he was still the quarterback of the Patriots. I guess it didn't impress Bill Belichick then.
Well, he's always been flexible.
Tom Brady, pliable.
Yeah.
We call it
pliable.
pliable.
Pliable. Well, that's one of his things, right? You're supposed to be pliable.
Yes.
Are you pliable when you do yoga or just flexible?
I have no idea.
What is pliable? I don't even know what that means.
I can barely touch my toes.
We were talking about it earlier. None of us can.
Okay.
Oh, you can? You do yoga all the time.
But I can't touch my toes.
I know. Isn't it sad when you get older?
I have short arms.
It gets worse,
That's my
Johnny.
excuse. Short arms, long legs.
I do have long legs.
Yeah, that's the
my
problem.
excuse too.
That's the problem.
All
Okay.
right.
Attorney Casey.
All right, ladies.
Thank you very much.
I'll hug you later at the
luck.
office.
Good luck with you and the WNBA. Go get them.
You go get them.
I'm going to keep going after them.
All right, Attorney Casey is an anchor
Thank
reporter
you.
for NBC Sports Boston and a good hugger who I love very much, and of course a BPR contributor. Next, we're going to end the show with you and your calls and texts, we hope. Look, has a weight loss drug ruined your friendship? We're going to open the lines to get your thoughts on Beth Tatel's latest column in the Boston Globe. We're going to delve into the jealousy, maybe the judgment that's just one-sided effect of the boom in the weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan. You are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH live from the BPL and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Mayor Michelle Wu is rejecting Attorney General Pam Bondi's demand that Boston end its sanctuary city policies. The latest in New England sports news with GBH's Esteban Bustillos. And in his new memoir, poet Raymond Antibus recounts a life between the deaf world and the hearing world and how he feels displaced in both. That and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Bryant University, where learning goes beyond the classroom. With 4 years of real-world projects and global experiences, Bryant is committed to providing students with exceptional outcomes and skills to succeed on day one. Bryant.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I'm here with Sue O'Connell. She's in for Jim Browdy. Congresswoman Anna Presley's going to be with us here at the library tomorrow at 11:30. If you want to see her in person, come on down. But right now, more than 1 in every 10 Americans has used GLP-1 drugs for weight loss. You know, the Wegovy things you see advertised all the time, and the other Wegovy type things, Ozempic, you've heard of them all. Additional 14% say they're interested. The drugs are seemingly everywhere, although some people who need them for their original intended use, treating diabetes, said they can't access them, which is terrible. But as goes Hollywood, so goes the rest of the world. Once the rich and famous get their hands on the latest thing, they can keep them thin. It is not long for the rest of society to catch up. So Beth Titel has this great story in the Boston Globe talking about some of the unintended side effects of people taking Wegovy or Ozempic or those other weight loss drugs, or not taking them. Jealousy from your loved ones. Problems in the marriage. The husband is taking one of these weight loss drugs. He's lost 40 pounds. The wife, for whatever reason, is not taking the weight loss drug. She's getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever, to go to the gym, getting nowhere. He's lying back in bed, watching the news. Then he wants to go out for ice cream, and she's ready to tear her hair out. Or judging people in your lives for why they're not taking a weight loss drug if they have a weight problem, you know, secretly saying, or maybe right out loud to them, why aren't you taking one of these weight loss drugs, you big overweight thing, you. So we're talking about the kind of the jealousies, the judgments, the changing relationships, the secrecy, and lying about it. You know, it's kind of like the big question, have you had a facelift? And all the people in Hollywood say, no, I haven't. You say, well, wow, that's amazing, because you look like you're 30 when you're 80. It's the same thing with this sudden weight loss. Is it? Have you been giving up liquor, giving up sugar, giving up anything that's fattening? Or have you just taken a drug to cure your problem? So we want to know about the impact of these drugs on your life. Our number is 877-304-8970, 877-301-8970. Did I give the right number?
No, you did now. 877-301-8970.
I should know it by now.
Wow.
I should know it by now, shouldn't I? Hello. Well, there
and
you
we
go.
should say, I want to set the table, no pun intended. You know, not everyone can tolerate Wegovy or Zepbound. Not everyone has access to it. And also, culturally, when you stop doing something that your group does, your friends, like if you stop drinking or cut back on drinking or have a drinking problem and stop drinking and your friends are still socially drinking, is that something that breaks you up? The Ozempic and
that's
these
a
other
big
drugs
thing.
also cut back on gambling. People are saying that they have other reactions other than not eating as much. It's also changing their behavior. So, is there a friendship you have, a relationship you have that has been changed in some way that's outside of your control that you weren't expecting? Like suddenly your friend that you went to brunch with once a month doesn't want to go to brunch anymore because they're on Ozempic, and
they don't want to eat as much, right?
Right. You just don't eat as much, and they might not want to spend the money if they're not necessarily caring about eating. So what do you do? Do you change your ways, or does that impact your relationship? The same thing with kids too. It happens all the time when you have kids and someone else doesn't have kids. But when you're in your midlife world where a lot of folks are using the weight loss drugs and suddenly your behavior changes, how does that impact your friendships? We want to hear from
how
you.
does it impact your friendships? And there is, as she says, a lot of judgment where people are looking at people in their lives who have a weight problem, who are not taking these drugs, and they're mad at them for not taking the drugs, which seems kind of
Well, the
not very
reality is
fair.
that a lot of folks who take the drugs have metabolic issues and liver issues that make it difficult for them to lose weight. So they could go to the gym and eat properly and do all sorts of things and not lose the weight that they would lose if they were on Ozempic, because everybody's different. Everybody has a different body. And, but these unsaid jealousies, these unsaid judgments, how are folks dealing with them within their relationships?
Okay, here's a good anecdote that Beth Teitel, who's a really talented and very funny writer, opens her column with, called As GLP-1s Go Mainstream, Jealousy and Judgment Follow. So here's how it starts. Aside from the simmering tension over her bangs and whether they should or should not be grown out, Marcia Berryland and her hairstylist had a good relationship until a third party came between them, GLP-1 drugs. After gaining 35 pounds thanks to menopause and the pandemic, Perry started taking a weight loss drug, a pharmacy-prepared non-brand version, but when she walked into the Metro West salon looking slim, at a time her stylist was scrambling to find one of these drugs to manage her diabetes, a chill and then a ghosting set in. She said she didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it was the end of her relationship with her hairstylist. And we know, Sue, how many of us feel a certain closeness.
Absolutely.
Because you tell all your secrets to the hairstylist. And that was it. She couldn't go back to the hairstylist anymore because there was resentment and jealousy between them. And I think apparently this is happening all across America.
Yep, and it happens too. Like, to your point, if you have access to this drug because you're paying out of pocket, paying $1,000 a month, and your neighbor next door has diabetes and can't get the drug because it's not available, but you're able to get it because you're paying for it, that adds a little stress into some things as well. So let's take some calls. Let's talk to Janice in Arlington. Janice, welcome to Boston Public Radio. You're on the air.
Thank you very much. I don't like the fact that people who are taking GLP-1s for their weight loss, I have to wait more than a week to get my dosage of Ozempic a couple years for my diabetes. I think if people want to lose weight, that's fine, but let us get our medications, please.
How long did it used to take you, Janice? Do you get it the same day?
No, I can't get it the same day I request it.
No. Before the craze for weight loss, I mean, like 3 years ago or 5 years ago or something, before people were using this for weight loss, would you be able to just go into the pharmacy, wait 20 minutes, and then get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I could get it the same day I requested it.
I would say,
thank you for the call.
My other segment in life is called "Be Mad at the Right People," right? And obviously, this is a life a health issue for Janice, but at the same time, when the pharmaceutical companies are advertising like crazy that you can get this drug to lose weight, although they never explicitly say it in the ads, they always say different things, and then people who can afford to get them buy them. It's on the pharmaceutical companies who have been, and I get they have to make the money back. We can have a whole discussion about where their money goes. But when they are asking people to get the drug for weight loss that's not directly diabetes or health related, and then those people buy the drugs, who's at fault here? The pharmaceutical company who's inviting you. They don't need to advertise it. They could just make sure they had enough for people who have diabetes and then roll it out slowly.
That's very good. But
so be mad at the pharmaceutical
mad
companies.
at the pharmaceutical companies. But there is this kind of thing between people, and some of the people that were commenting on the story talked about it, where one sister is grown up with a weight problem. They both grown up with a weight problem. One sister is on the drug, and one sister isn't on the drug. And there's this tension between them. Or they think that you really should suffer to lose weight. You shouldn't be able to just take a pill and lose weight. That you should have to go to the gym for 2 hours every day and give up all these great foods you like so that you can lose weight. They don't like the easy route out.
Well, and I would say it's not. And to counter the folks that think that, people I know who have been on it have had problems on the Wegovy. It also makes you very nauseous. These drugs can make you nauseous. They can cause all kinds of gastro problems. And taking them isn't always just a walk in the park. So there is a sacrifice that you are making taking them, especially if you are taking it for medical reasons. So
well, people like thin in the United States of America. Don't they?
Well, we should call RFK and get him directed on the right things instead of worrying about our flu shots. Maybe he could help us have better foods that are more available.
And the other thing is in the marriages. If one person is losing a lot of weight and one person is not losing another weight, I mean, there's a bias. We were talking earlier about men going in and getting their legs lengthened through all this torture and pain to gain 3 inches of height.
They should be tortured for all the pain we go through. I have to dye my hair every 3 weeks. They should have
because they feel as though
medieval operation.
But it's a medieval operation, but they feel so upset about being short, even though, as I said yesterday, I thought Vladimir Zelensky was the hero in that group, and he's short.
Yep.
But anyway.
Anonymous texter tells us, my husband is taking Wegovy. He has lost weight, but he has also lost his sense of humor and his delightful personality. He says he's lost the food noise that contributed to overeating, but it seems he has also lost all the highs and lows of his everyday life. As a spouse, he isn't interested in many of the things he used to be interested in, like me.
Oh, my
That's
God.
Sad. So there is adjacent studies that show that the Wegovy, these drugs actually shut down other cravings that you have.
Supposedly with, over shopping, over gambling, over drinking, over all these things.
And liking your wife, apparently. So that's
you just become a boring stiff. That's the question. Is it worth becoming a boring stiff that nobody likes anymore to lose 35 pounds?
We'll
I don't
find
know.
out. All right, let's go to Karma in Dorchester. Dorchester, it's coming out. The Revia's coming out. Hey, Karma, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I've been listening to you guys forever.
Thank you.
Welcome.
First call.
Great.
My best friend growing up is a nurse practitioner, and maybe she had gained like 5 or 10 pounds, but she always has to be on the very first fad. She used to jump on it. So she actually dressed up and tried to look like she had gained more weight and did a telehealth call in order to get GLP-1s. And then she actually started sourcing them to all her friends as well.
I think that's illegal.
When you say sourcing,
live here.
When you say sourcing, what do you mean?
She was basically giving it to them so that they could try it and see if they liked it. And then she would write them a prescription for it if they liked it. And I was like, none of these people are overweight. What are you doing?
So
it was insane.
So did she lose a lot of weight and look like Gisele Bündchen or something?
I mean, she has that, what they call the Ozempic face, you know?
Yeah.
Very, very pronounced cheekbones, very skinny. Yeah.
And she was getting Ozempic even though she was very skinny.
I mean, she had just maybe gained like 5 pounds, 10 pounds. That was it.
Karma, how was that?
Now she's probably lost 25.
How's it impacted your relationship with her?
Well, I respect her a little less because of what she's doing. But also, when she came to visit me, She always wants to go out. She wants to go to all these restaurants. She didn't want to go anywhere. You can't drink when you're on Ozempic either. So she didn't feel like going out for drinks. She couldn't do anything that we used to do. She just wanted to stay home and read a book.
There you go. All right, Carmen. Thanks for calling in. Good luck with that relationship and moving forward.
You think about this. You got to stop gambling. You got to stop compulsive shopping. You got to stop drinking.
But you get to live longer and healthier, and you look better. How about that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But you know what's funny though? If you really if you know anybody,
we take all the joy out of life here, Sue.
If you know anybody
who
who
enjoy
is
a big cheeseburger anymore,
a model or an actor or someone on television, they really do sacrifice a lot to stay thin, even if they are on the thin genetic side. There's that great line from Notting Hill with Julia Roberts.
Oh yes,
and Hugh Grant, where he says, "What's it like being a celebrity?" And she says, "I am hungry all the time." So there is a sacrifice.
Okay,
all right.
well, we don't have to look like, models. You can just be kind of a normal person. It seems like a lot to give up.
All right, so another anonymous texter, my brother was taking Ozempic and stopped drinking. He started losing lots of weight and was a lot more enjoyable to be around. Then he decided he didn't want to do that anymore, so he's back to drinking and being overweight. It feels like it's harder to be around him now because he gave up than it was before when that was just who he was. That's the other part of, sort of these relationships when someone might get sober and they're going to recovery meetings and then they start drinking again. You're like, oh, you're back. Like, I like that other guy.
Don't they always say, you're going to change your whole pattern of living? If you're in AA and you can't hang around with your drinking friends anymore, you lose a lot of your drinking friends.
Right.
But it's funny. You see people who quit drinking. This person talked about her husband losing his personality. You see that sometimes. I have a lot of friends, maybe it's the crowd I hang around with, who are big drinkers for a long time, and then they stopped drinking. And some of them are just as fun to be around, but some of them have lost their whole personality.
Or I will offer this, Margery. One of the first friends I know who got sober, who when they were drinking was an a-hole, then stopped drinking and they were still an a-hole. And I said to someone, I can't believe this. And they said, maybe the drinking wasn't the problem. Maybe they're just an a-hole.
That's true,
so that just really goes with it as well.
This reminds, of course, all of us of our favorite line ever from the movie Airplane. Maybe I picked the wrong a week to quit drinking. Maybe I quit the wrong week to quit smoking. Maybe I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines. And maybe I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Don't call me Shirley.
Don't call me Shirley, Shirley. All right, Jane from Millis. Jane, welcome to BPR. What's on your mind?
So I'm laughing so hard because I am on the way to my doctor about, I've been on Zepbound for 6 weeks.
You did
I
what?
love it.
Zepbound.
Yeah. I've been on Zepbound, so one of the GLPs, for 6 weeks. I'm in my mid-40s. I love it. I feel like the food noise is gone. My anxiety is way down.
Really?
I still have a sparkly personality. My family tells me I'm still fun. I can have a cocktail once in a while, but I'm loving it, and I've had really, really good results.
Jane, can we talk about the food noise a little bit? Because I don't think people understand that. Because one of the things that you don't know, like we're all very different. Like I don't think about food at all. Like I know I eat very plain stuff on a regular basis. I love to eat out. I love to have great meals. I love people, but I'm not thinking about food. But there are people, Jane, are you one of them, who is thinking about food a lot?
What does that mean?
I found, before this, I couldn't really turn it off. So say I'd be at a social occasion, and there was my favorite appetizer, and I'd be, like, really excited to have it. And now it's like, if it's there, it's like, that's great, but I'm not, like, fixated on it, you know?
It's like if you like I think about food when I'm hungry or when I'm meal planning.
Yeah.
But people who it's an intrusive thought basically. It's like an obsessive compulsive disorder, intrusive thought where you're just driving and suddenly you're thinking about food and that triggers you to think that you're hungry, and then of course food becomes what you're trying to do even if you're not hungry, and that adds to your weight gain because your brain's telling you you're hungry even if you aren't. Is that a good analysis, Jane?
No. 30 years.
So what do you think that comes from? Jane?
I don't know. maybe upbringing. Maybe,
No, I'm
not sure.
I think it's a form of OCD. I really do. I think it's an obsessive. I think it's an intrusive thought that you can't think about. Plus, your gut. Like this is my doctor once said this to me. I had these stomach problems, and she said, "Well, you have to remember that 200 years ago, your people were living on an island off the coast of Great Britain.
That's right.
Eating moss and eating potatoes, and then you come here, and the descendants are. I could eat any food from around the world within 10 seconds, and my stomach is like, where are the potatoes? That's what we're supposed to eat.
Well, it's true. So. That's why I stick to potatoes personally. I eat a lot of mashed potatoes, a lot of baked potatoes. You can't go wrong.
Thanks for sharing with us, Jane. We appreciate it.
One of our staff members is stunned by this. Zoe thinks, wait, so some people are just not hungry sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
For me, sleep is a time machine to breakfast.
Wow.
You and Jim Browdy.
Yep.
Jim Browdy, I've told the stories about Jim Browdy all the time, about how he, he talks about having a weight issue. And I think one of the things is that you've just eaten some massive, sub sandwich or something, and then somebody brings some food to the radio station. When we were at a commercial radio station, it was a lot of food would often be brought, and it was like a stampede going down the hall to eat more. Free food after you just like eaten lunch. That's sort of the thing. Maybe it's like liquor. If you're an alcoholic, you read these stories about people that think about liquor.
I think it's all about
the
the intrusive thoughts. I have come to with no medical degree and no psychological training or no advanced degree in any way. I think most of our problems are about intrusive thoughts that we have that we can't ignore, and food and drink are one of them. Hey, Paul in Boston, what's on your mind?
Hey, I think about food all the time, and they're very welcome thoughts. They're not intrusive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about right now? What are you thinking about?
How about bacon?
I had bacon for breakfast.
Really crisp. That's why we like it.
I just had a couple of those little like Unbound or something coconut dark chocolate bars.
Oh.
That's not why I called you.
Okay.
I called to say that I'm 63 years old. I've just lost 40 pounds.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Good job.
I'm very, very proud of that. And I did not use Wegovy or Zepbound or anything else. And I want someone to print me a T-shirt that says, yes, I look fabulous. No, I didn't take the drugs.
Oh.
I'm very proud of the people who are taking the drugs and getting great effects. But there's a whole bunch of us out there who are doing really hard work.
But you know what? Can I push back a little bit, Paul? Because I have people in my family who are on the Wegovy and on the Zepbound, and they have struggled doing all sorts of things and maybe you have as well, and not gotten any positive. They've eaten the right foods, they've gone to a dietitian, they've worked out and had no reaction. And the Wegovy and the Zepbound has been a lifesaver.
But I get what he's saying, though. It's kind of like people.
Right, but can you do it without saying that other person? Like, it's kind of judgy in the opposite way.
Well, that's what we're talking about here, Sue. That people are very judgmental about weight and people losing weight, and it's almost like, Paul, if you lose it with the drugs, you're not as good as the person who loses it without the drugs. I mean, that's
what Paul's saying.
And I think you got a point. So, what's your T-shirt going to say, Paul?
What's my what?
Your T-shirt going to say? I love you. Ozempic,
I love everyone. You're going to say that one. I love everyone.
I'm svelte.
No, it's going to say yes, I look fabulous. No, I didn't take the drugs. And on the back, it would say, I don't know, good for you, Ozempic, or something like that. I haven't thought about it yet.
This is what it's coming to. You have to identify yourself. Paul, that was a great call. You have to identify yourself as doing it the difficult way. But we have lots of people who are saying, here's somebody, I just lost 20 pounds on Ozempic, love it, still enjoy food and drink, but just want like 40% less. I mean, seriously, they do say it's really helpful for people who do have an alcohol problem. And Britton from Rosendale said this conversation is making me very, very hungry. She wishes we would stop talking about this because I guess she's having more brain food kind of thing. And we lost the caller. This person wanted to know how the caller lost weight. But anyway, 877-301-8970. You were talking about the jealousies and the relationship challenges and the fears and the frustrations and the agony and the ecstasy of these weight loss drugs are causing schisms in our community between those who have and those who have not.
My mother always used to say, as soon as you get on the lifeboat, the first thing you do is start pulling up the ladder behind you. So it's like we have a miracle drug which is helping us lose weight, and everyone is already, casting throwing stones at the people who are using the miracle drug to help themselves lose weight because they're not doing it the right way, which if we could do it the right way, we wouldn't have needed the miracle drugs in the first place.
That is true.
How about that?
That is true. That is true. Jennifer in the car, did your relationships break up over these super drugs or what?
Not my relationships. Whoops.
You're good. You still there, Jennifer?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. But I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I will say that this is the only time in my life that diabetes has given me a leg up.
There you go.
So I had early access to some of these, and I started to get the hairy eyeball about weight loss as soon as I started to show that I was losing weight. I've lost about 70 pounds over 2.5 years.
So what do people say?
Well, let me ask first. Before we get to that, let me ask Jennifer. What did you do to try and lose weight before the drugs? Did you? I imagine you, because it was a health issue. You tried, right?
I did, and in fact, I had been on a baby, the pre-version of these GLPs. It was called Similan. It was an artificial hormone that you also have, and it affects weight. You had to take it 15 minutes every time you ate, 15 minutes before every time you ate 15 grams of carbohydrate or more. And it was grueling. I lost about 50 pounds, but it was totally unsustainable.
Oh.
And all that weight came back on.
All right. Well, Jennifer, I appreciate you calling and sharing with this and ending us with the things you have to do. We're running out of time.
We're out of time.
But thank you for all of our callers. We're going to head over to Jared Bowen, who's in the studio, because he's got the Culture Show coming up next. Quickly, Jared, what's coming your way today, or our way today?
Oh, we have to ask him first. You're very thin, Jared. What's the story?
Everything in moderation and a lot of running, I guess.
Okay.
And stress. He likes the stress.
Stress, exactly.
Yeah. How much do you run, Jared?
I thought you were going to ask me how much I weigh. I run about
not much.
30-something miles a week.
30-something miles a week.
Yeah.
Aren't you special?
Oh, excuse me, Miss Hot Yoga over there. You're pretty special yourself.
That's right. I do like to do hot yoga. That heat, get in there and you sweat. Everybody sweats all over each other. It wasn't good during COVID, needless to say. But COVID is mostly, well, I shouldn't say that. There's a big surge in COVID. But anyway, I'll shut up now. What are you doing on your show?
We're going to be speaking with Twice a Day Ray. They are our music group, who is a music group by night, emergency personnel, medical personnel by day. So we'll be talking to them about covering everybody from Madonna to Taylor Swift to Led Zeppelin.
Oh, neat.
Jane Eaglin, our favorite Grammy-winning soprano, is here talking to us about opera as a contact sport. And then Mary Grant of Mass Art, the president, of course, of Mass Art, is here to tell us about what she's telling kids as they come back to school, want to go out into the art world and maybe be in museums in a climate where a lot of work is being constricted or outright censored right now.
All right. Jared Bowen, the Culture Show is coming up next, right here on 89.7 GBH. Thanks to everyone who called and listened to BPR.
Yeah, hold on. Jared Bowen, 3% body fat, maybe 2% body fat. It's unbelievable. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
And thanks to everyone who came to the BPL to see the show with or without tickets or reservations. You need neither. You can get our podcast at, of course, at the Boston Public Radio at GBH, and our TikTok page is at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, back here at the BPL, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley joins us live in studio, plus national security expert Julia Kayyem. And then we'll have a transit panel, and we're going to talk about water quality, all sorts of important things that impact your life. Zoe Matthews, Aidan Connolly, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker, and our executive producer is the ever-effervescent Jamie Bologna. And thanks to our team at the BPL, Maddie Gayer, Bill Francis, and Juan Jose Cadena. So stay tuned. Like I said, I'm Sue O'Connell.
I'm Margery Egan.
We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening to Boston Public Radio on GBH, The Culture Show with Jared Bowen. Up next.